Chapter 695. Han Shuo hastily left the laver's residence and went to another street block. He spent 5 purple crystal coins to rent a gymnasium. The gymnasium was only 500 square meters in size and was defended by 2 boundary towers. After closing the gymnasium, Han Shuo's 2 avatars flew out from the cauldron of myriad demon. The avatar that cultivated in the energy of death continued to absorb the divine essences of death he obtained, while the avatar that cultivated in the energy of destruction condensed the orbs of destruction and slowly explored how to use the orbs of destruction and his domain of divinity inside the boundary. Back in Fort Verka, Han Shuo had paid close attention to the orbs of destruction released by Brofst's dark golden sphere. Using his consciousness, Han Shuo tried his best to memorize the trajectories of the orbs of destruction as they revolved around the boundary of the gymnasium. Now that Han Shuo was experimenting with the usage of the orbs of destruction again and again, he was no longer fumbling around. By relying on the powerful memory of his consciousness, Han Shuo guided the orbs of destruction around his domain of divinity according to the trajectories of the orbs of destruction. Han Shuo, who had calmed his mind, sat in the gymnasium, oblivious to the passage of time. He experimented with the flight trajectories of the orbs of destruction over and over again. Gradually, Han Shuo discovered that the orbs of destruction became more and more agile as he tried to operate them according to the memory of his consciousness. The trajectories of the orbs of destruction also seemed to coincide with the essence of the Edict of Destruction. Han Shuo's Avatar of Death and Avatar of Death were not idling around either. Unknowingly, all the divine essences of death that Metal Elite Zombie and Earth Elite Zombie found had been sucked clean by Han Shuo's Avatar of Death. As Han Shuo's Avatar of Death had previously absorbed the divine soul of a pure mid-god without any self-awareness, his comprehension of the energy of death would increase as his energy improved. After absorbing all the divine essences, Han Shuo faintly sensed that the divine energy in his body was on the verge of a breakthrough. This meant that as long as he had sufficient divine energy, Han Shuo's Avatar of Death could very possibly break through to mid-god realm within a short period of time. There was an enormous barrier between low gods and mid-gods. Once Han Shuo stepped into the realm of low gods, it would mean that his status on Elysium would rise to a higher level. For example, in the City of Shadows, there were countless low gods like Han Shuo. However, the number of mid-gods was drastically reduced. Almost every mid-god would receive invitations from various family clans and would gain some status in the city. Han Shuo's main body was not idling around either. While his 2 avatars were constantly cultivating and improving themselves, Han Shuo's main body had been discussing demonic arts techniques with Cauldron Spirit. He had started cultivating the invincible Omen body that could only be mastered by those in the Omen realm. The invincible Omen body was a secret technique that could strengthen one's physical defenses to the greatest extent. According to the demonic consciousness left behind by Gu Tianxie, the exalted demon lord, the invincible Omen body could instantly fill every cell and bone in one's body with demonic yuan. It would strengthen one's physical defenses by 100-fold and form a defensive barrier inside one's body. Once one was attacked, one's demonic body would automatically form the invincible Omen body, rendering the enemy's attacks useless. As the demonic yuan of a demonic art cultivator grew, the defensive power of the invincible Omen body would also grow stronger. In the end, not only would the cultivator be impervious to swords and spears, water and fire, but it would also possess a terrifying counterattack power. Once the cultivator was attacked, the invincible Omen body would automatically gather the energy within the cultivator's body and instantly unleash a terrifying force, inflicting heavy damage on the opponent. It could be said that once one mastered the invincible Omen body, one would not have to worry about being ambushed. Any ambushes would be like getting caught in a web of their own making. It was said that when Gu Tianxie, the exalted demon lord, was refining a demonic weapon, he was discovered by 3 of his enemies. When the 3 saw that Gu Tianxie, the exalted demon lord, was refining a demonic weapon, they immediately joined forces and attacked him. However, under the terrifying defensive power of Gu Tianxie's invincible Omen body, Gu Tianxie merely vomited a small mouthful of blood. Of the 3 attackers, 2 were killed on the spot by the counterattack of the invincible omen body. The third was so badly injured that he was scared out of his wits and immediately stumbled out of the place. He died before he could even walk out of Gu Tianxia's demonic domain. Han Shuo had a very solid foundation to begin with. He had placed great emphasis on the tempering and forging of his physical body over the years. As soon as he obtained the cultivation method for the invincible omen body, Han Shuo immediately began to cultivate without eating or sleeping. Whenever he came across something he did not understand, he would immediately ask Cauldron Spirit. Cauldron Spirit was indeed worthy of being the most precious demonic treasure. Under the influence of Gu Tianxia, its understanding of demonic energy was much deeper than Han Shuo's. It was able to provide detailed explanations to many of the questions that Han Shuo did not understand. With the help of Cauldron Spirit, Han Shuo tirelessly cultivated the invincible omen body. The invincible omen body was a process of destruction and reconstruction. During the cultivation process, Han Shuo's blood vessels would rupture and his internal organs would shatter. Having gotten used to the cultivation method of demonic arts that was akin to self-mutilation, Han Shuo persisted in forging his physical body over and over again. The concept of time in the gymnasium was very indifferent. The first to wake up was Han Shuo's avatar of death. After absorbing all the divine essences containing the energy of death, it was no longer as easy for his avatar of death to make any further progress. When Han Shuo raised his head and looked at the energy clock hanging on the ceiling of the gymnasium, he realized that half a year had passed without him realizing it. During this period of time, Han Shuo had only absorbed all the divine essences while his other 2 avatars were still immersed in their cultivation. Another 3 months passed. Han Shuo's avatar of destruction had also stopped studying the Edict of Destruction. Han Shuo had experimented with all the methods he had memorized with his consciousness and had grasped part of the usage of the orbs of destruction. At present, with a single thought from Han Shuo, the 5 orbs of destruction would constantly revolve around Han Shuo according to the Edict of Destruction. So long as Han Shuo willed it, those orbs of destruction would attack any corner in a special trajectory. Han Shuo knew that the usage of the orbs of destruction could only be gradually improved as his understanding of the Edict of Destruction increased. This avatar of his was also on the verge of a breakthrough. Han Shuo believed that with another epiphany, he would be able to take another step forward and reach the late-stage low-god realm. Another 2 months passed. Han Shuo's main body that was cultivating the invincible omen body had also stopped its refinement. Han Shuo had almost crazily cultivated and tortured himself to the point of achieving a small success in the invincible omen body. Once Han Shuo willed it, the invincible omen body would materialize and the demonic yuan would instantly fill every corner of his body. However, Han Shuo was still a long way from achieving the realm of invincible omen body. As for the realm of invincible omen body, where it would automatically explode with the power of invincible omen body, Han Shuo was still far from achieving that realm. He could only take it one step at a time. All 3 of his avatars had temporarily cultivated to their limits. If he wanted to take another step forward, he couldn't just rely on cultivation to make a breakthrough. At this time, Han Shuo knew that there was no longer any need to stay in the gymnasium. His 2 avatars once again returned to Han Shuo's body. After taking a good bath in the gymnasium and changing into a set of clean clothes, Han Shuo walked out of the gymnasium. As he had stayed in the gymnasium for nearly a year, the 5 purple crystal coins that Han Shuo had paid previously were not enough. He had no choice but to pay another 6 purple crystal coins. When Han Shuo handed over the remaining purple crystal coins to the old man, he took the opportunity to ask, "Where is the largest scroll shop in the vicinity?" "Head north from here. You will see a scroll shop called God's Gift very soon. You should be able to find what you need inside." After putting away the 6 purple crystal coins, the old man enthusiastically pointed the way for Han Shuo. After thanking the old man, Han Shuo left the gymnasium and headed towards the scroll shop called God's Gift. Approximately 20 minutes later, Han Shuo entered the scroll shop. Han Shuo needed some truly useful comprehension of the Edict of Destruction. Therefore, he came here. This was the scroll shop owned by God Hunter Rahman in Fort Verka. This god's gift shop was much bigger than Han Shuo had imagined. Although the shop only had one floor, it was divided into many sections. Other than the energy of life and the energy of light, the other 10 fundamental energies were divided into their own sections. There was also a section filled with experience scrolls for all sorts of non-mainstream energies. There were scrolls for the cultivation of fighting aura, scrolls for the cultivation of the energy of fear, and even scrolls for the cultivation of the energy of lust. This greatly surprised Han Shuo. When Han Shuo arrived at the section for the scrolls of destruction, he discovered that the entire section was divided into 3 sections. One was for scrolls on the comprehension of the Edict of Destruction, one was for scrolls on the attack methods of the Edict of Destruction, and the last was for scrolls on the usage of divine weapons of destruction. Each of the 3 sections was guarded by specialized personnel. They were in charge of explaining and selling nearly 100 types of scrolls. All of them were professionally trained. Each and every one of them was smiling from ear to ear and gave off a comfortable feeling as though one was bathing in a spring breeze. Upon arriving at this section, Han Shuo had to admit that this was a truly large shop. Compared to this place, Ramon's shop was simply insignificant. Han Shuo walked straight to the section for scrolls on the comprehension of the Edict of Destruction. When he lowered his head to take a look, he was startled yet again. He saw that those scrolls were priced in black crystal coins. They were so expensive that Han Shuo was a little dazed. The cheapest scroll was priced at 3 black crystal coins. The most expensive scroll for mid-gods was priced at 9,000 black crystal coins. That was far more than Han Shuo's current net worth. Every scroll in our shop has been specially inspected. You should feel that they are worth the price. After all, the improvement of one's cultivation realm is the foundation of one's strength. It is normal for them to be a little expensive. After explaining to Han Shuo in a very amiable manner, the young and handsome shop assistant asked, "May I know where you have encountered a problem? I can help you select a suitable scroll." Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment after hearing those words. He quickly replied, "I am currently in the mid-stage low-god realm. At present, I have a vague feeling that I am about to make a breakthrough to the late-stage low-god realm. Unfortunately, I have not been able to grasp the crux of the breakthrough. I do not know which aspect I am lacking in. Therefore, I would like to see if there are any scrolls here that can help me." This is a scroll. It contains the insights of a person who had made a breakthrough to the late-stage low-god realm. It is priced at 47 black crystal coins. I believe it will be of some help to you. The shop assistant lowered his head and flipped through a booklet. After a while, he raised his head and took a scroll from the bottom of the counter. He confidently said to Han Shuo, "So professional." Han Shuo was greatly amazed. His trust in this shop grew. Without any hesitation, Han Shuo took out 47 black crystal coins and handed it to the shop assistant. He said, "All right, give it to me. Before I sell it, according to the rules, I have to remind you that the scrolls here are merely the insights of the predecessors who had made a breakthrough. Not everyone's cultivation path is the same. Perhaps the successful experiences of the predecessors might not be suitable for you. These scrolls may give you more insights, but they cannot guarantee that you will be able to make a breakthrough to your current realm." The shop assistant explained to Han Shuo with a faint smile, "All right, I understand. Give it to me." Han Shuo naturally knew that the scrolls wouldn't be 100% effective. He didn't need the shop assistant's reminder. "Please give me your divine tablet. We have a rule here that all scrolls for sale must be recorded in detail." The shop assistant said apologetically. After handing over the divine tablet and the 47 black crystal coins, Han Shuo also received the scroll after going through the normal procedures. He impatiently skimmed through the contents of the scroll. Han Shuo's face was filled with a bitter smile. The owner of the scroll wasn't good at expressing himself at all. Some of the contents of the scroll were vague and confusing. Han Shuo couldn't understand what the owner was trying to say. It seemed that those were his own thoughts from the beginning. The only useful point was that the owner talked about hatred. He said that hatred gave him the urge to destroy everything. Under the support of intense hatred, the owner of the scroll could only think of utterly destroying his enemies. The moment he killed the enemy that was engraved in his bones, he suddenly made a breakthrough. "We have agreed beforehand that even if you fail to obtain what you need, we will not refund you. When the shop assistant saw the bitter smile on Han Shua's face, he immediately realized that Han Shua hadn't understood the meaning of the scroll. He hastily reminded Han Shua, "Forget it. I should have known that everyone's understanding of cultivation is different. If divine scrolls were useful, there wouldn't be so many people stuck in the same realm." Han Shua helplessly sighed, no longer pinning his hopes on the divine scrolls. He turned around and left the scroll shop. Hatred. Hatred gives rise to the urge to destroy everything. Hatred. Hatred. After exiting the scroll shop, Han Shua thought to himself. He felt that the scroll had given him some inspiration on this point. However, the enemy that was engraved in his bones had long been killed by Han Shua. At present, Han Shua didn't have any enemy with such deep hatred. Even if he wanted to try, he didn't know where to start. Suddenly, Han Shua raised his brows. He stopped moving and turned around to look behind him. Shortly after, a group of travel-worn divine guards from the City of Shadows rushed over and surrounded Han Shua. "You are Brian, right?" The leader of the group was the green-haired young man whom Han Shua had met in the Godhunter Valley. He immediately shouted coldly when he saw Han Shua. "That's right. What's the matter?" Han Shua stared blankly for a moment and looked at the young man in confusion. "You know what you have done. Come with us." After Han Shua admitted to it, the green-haired young man shouted furiously, "Shameless fella! How dare you rob us of our spoils of war? I will make you spit them all out." Chapter 696. Upon hearing those words, Han Shua immediately understood what was going on. Seeing that the green-haired young man was in a towering rage, Han Shua put on a wry smile and refused to admit, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." "Brat, you have robbed the deceased of all their belongings. If you have the guts to do it, why don't you have the guts to admit it?" "I didn't do it. Why would I admit it? The items you sold at that divine weapon shop were obviously from the deceased in the valley. The people in the shop have reported it to me. Why are you still being so stubborn?" Han Shua suddenly turned silent after hearing those words. He did not expect that Donna would cause so much trouble for those divine weapons. Seeing that there was no way he could deny it, Han Shua bunched his brows and asked, "What do you want?" This wasn't a big deal. Han Shua did not think that they could do anything to him. "Nothing much. Those items were sold for a total of 300 black crystal coins. Just come with us and make things clear. According to the rules, we will deduct a portion of your crystal coins and we will consider this matter settled," the green-haired young man said mischievously after seeing that Han Shua had admitted to the crime. There were a dozen or so divine guards around Han Shua. These divine guards were the direct subordinates of Erebus, one of the 7 divine guard chiefs of the City of Shadows. All of them possessed mid-god strength. Erebus was a member of the largest family clan in the City of Shadows, the House of Saint. Han Shua knew that he had just arrived in the city and did not have much capital. Therefore, Han Shua followed the green-haired young man to the 3rd corps that was under Erebus' control. Naturally, Erebus would not be bothered with such a trivial matter. After arriving at the 3rd corps, the green-haired young man brought Han Shua to a hall filled with books and scrolls. A white-haired, middle-aged man with a solemn face began to interrogate Han Shua. After Han Shua described what happened, the middle-aged man said, "According to the rules, you will have to pay them 2/3 of your crystal coins, which is 200 black crystal coins. Of those divine weapons I sold, 3 of them belong to mid-gods and they are mine. I didn't buy them from anyone else. Those 3 mid-god divine weapons are worth 250 black crystal coins. That's the real deal." "I hope you understand this point clearly," Han Shua immediately protested after hearing those words. "Mr. Caden, don't listen to his nonsense. This youngster is just a low god who has just arrived on Elysium. It is impossible for him to possess 3 mid-god divine weapons. Those divine weapons that he sold were all secretly looted from the valley. That is for sure." The green-haired young man sneered. 300 black crystal coins was a small fortune to them. All of them were mid-gods. "I'm courting death. Come and kill me, you fools." A shrill, young female voice sounded. As soon as the voice faded, an ugly young woman with disheveled lavender hair walked into the hall. Her face was like an irregular square. She had a small nose, thick lips, triangular eyes, and dark green skin. No matter from which angle one looked at her, she was ugly and even a little frightening. But if one were to focus their attention on her body instead of her face, one would discover that her figure was graceful and curvaceous. She definitely had a good figure that only a peerless beauty should have. It was a pity that her devilish figure, coupled with her monstrous appearance, made her look somewhat shameful. Although this woman was extremely ugly, she possessed astonishing strength. As soon as she walked into the hall, even though she did not deliberately release any energy, she gave Han Shuo a very obvious oppressive aura. It was an aura that only high gods could possess. Han Shuo secretly released a strand of his consciousness in an attempt to probe the woman's strength. Before Han Shuo's consciousness could approach her, her triangular eyes suddenly turned towards Han Shuo. Han Shuo was startled and immediately withdrew his consciousness. "Ah, it's Miss Carmelita. What brings you to the third core?" Caden, who was shouting furiously a moment ago, immediately shriveled up when he saw the ugly young lady. He put on a wry smile and bowed. Anaito, who was sent flying, sat up, panting heavily. He hastily half-knelt on the ground and said, "I'm sorry, Mississippi. I didn't know it was you." Carmelita. As soon as Han Shuo heard how Caden addressed her, he carefully sized up the ugly young lady. Immediately, he noticed a very small pattern on the left shoulder of her tight-fitting purple armor. It was a pattern of 3 black holes arranged in a triangular formation. The black holes seemed to be able to absorb all energy. It was a pattern unique to the largest family clan in the City of Shadows, the House of Saint. Just like the dark sun of the House of Lavers, it was a unique symbol of a large family clan. After seeing the pattern of 3 black holes, Han Shuo immediately realized that the young lady was indeed the genius of the House of Saint, Carmelita. It was said that Carmelita had contracted a strange disease when she was young. As she grew up, she grew uglier and uglier. No treatment could cure her. However, although Carmelita grew uglier and uglier, she displayed astonishing talent in the cultivation of the energy of destruction. In just a short 300 years, she became an astonishing legend in the City of Shadows. Perhaps due to her ugly appearance, Carmelita had an extremely eccentric temperament and was very difficult to get along with. It would be even more difficult to detect them. Han Shuo reckoned that Carmelita and her party were searching for someone. She needed a special talent who could use the terrain and some minute clues to determine the situation. That was why she went to the third core to ask Erebus for help. Unfortunately, Erebus wasn't around. Therefore, she decided to try her best and drag Han Shuo along. Han Shuo pondered for a moment and figured out the ins and outs of the matter. Everyone on the airship was cultivating in silence. Han Shuo, who was used to solitude and solitude, didn't find it boring. He secretly observed the cultivation state of those powerful mid-gods, searching for something that he could learn from. Time flew by. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. One day, Han Shuo suddenly noticed that the airship's speed had abruptly dropped. Han Shuo lowered his head and discovered that the airship had arrived at a mountain range that was shrouded in multicolored miasma. The miasma carried a sour and rancid odor. It should contain toxins. Gradually, the airship stopped above the mountain range. Carmelita, who had been cultivating in silence, finally stood up. She lowered her head and looked at the mountain range that was shrouded in miasma. She softly cried out, "All right, we have finally arrived at the miasma cloud mountain range. Everyone, get ready and disembark from the airship. According to our intelligence, those guys are in the miasma cloud mountain range. Be careful. The peculiar miasma in the miasma cloud mountain range is very annoying. Not only does it carry all kinds of toxins, it can also reduce the perception of your divine soul." "Don't worry, miss. They are well prepared." The plump woman put on a faint smile. She took out an exquisite medicine bottle and poured out some of the liquid to apply on her body. The liquid formed a faint membrane that completely covered her plump body. The divine guards on the airship followed suit. Every one of them had a faint membrane formed on their body under the effect of the medicine. Carmelita was the only one who didn't do the same. Her body naturally formed a destructive force field that was hard to see with the naked eye. It created layers of energy waves that prevented any gaseous substance from approaching her body. Give Brian a bottle. Don't let him fall to the miasma before he can even take a few steps. Carmelita took the lead and flew towards the miasma cloud mountain range. Carmelita was the first to descend towards the miasma cloud mountain range. She only remembered Han Shuo when she was in midair. After Carmelita's purple figure dived into the miasma, the plump woman unwillingly tossed a medicine bottle to Han Shuo and said, "Just apply the medicine on your body. This bottle of medicine is worth 10 black crystal coins. You are really lucky." "Many thanks." Han Shuo smiled faintly and opened his hand. The medicine bottle flying towards him was sucked into his palm. He poured some of the medicine and smeared it on for a while. A very faint layer of thin film also appeared on his body, forming a special boundary that enveloped his body. Even without using the invincible Omen body, Han Shuo had no fear of the miasma's invasion. Having cultivated his demonic body to such a level, he could seal off all the pores on his body with a single thought. The miasma couldn't enter his body at all. Even if Han Shuo were to take a deep breath, he could expel the miasma through his pores. The reason why he still used that bottle of medicine was because he didn't want to attract the plump woman's attention. "I don't know why the mist would bring a low god like you here. In any case, we don't care whether a burden like you lives or dies. If you encounter any danger, you better run as far as you can. Don't expect us to pay attention to you." The plump woman grumbled and was the second to descend towards the miasma cloud mountain range. She cultivated in the energy of darkness and possessed late-stage mid-god strength. It was only natural for her to look down on a puny low god like Han Shuo. The divine guards of the House of Saint followed after Carmelita and the plump woman as they descended towards the miasma cloud mountain range. Soon, under the control of one of the divine guards, the airship gradually shrank. Han Shuo let out a soft laugh. He was rather interested in the situation in the miasma cloud mountain range. Before the divine guard could recall the airship, Han Shuo also descended towards the miasma cloud mountain range. Han Shuo discovered that the divine guards were closely following behind Carmelita. Each and every one of them wore vigilant expressions as they cautiously surveyed their surroundings. As the miasma was everywhere, visibility was limited. No matter how good one's eyesight was, they could only see within 100 meters of themselves. Any further than that would be very difficult to see. Han Shuo had cultivated in demonic arts for many years, but he could only see within 300 meters of himself. Any further than that would be just as blurry and indistinct. "Youngster, now is the time for you to come in handy. Can you find any traces of those people?" The plump woman shot a cold glance at Han Shuo. She did not seem to trust Han Shuo at all. Han Shuo shook his head indifferently and replied, "There are no traces of humans in the vicinity. By the way, who are those people you are looking for? What energy do they cultivate? What are their characteristics? I need to know the details." Han Shuo, too, looked at the plump woman and asked the leader of the party, Carmelita. "They are people from the Life Dominion. They are our mortal enemies. According to the unwritten rules, anyone who cultivates in the Edict of Life or the energy of light must be killed without mercy once they are discovered in our darkness dominion. They must be harboring unspeakable secrets for daring to come to our City of Shadows territory. We need to figure out their motives and kill them all. Otherwise, if the other cities in the darkness dominion were to find out, they would definitely mock our City of Shadows for being incompetent." Carmelita explained to Han Shuo fiercely. The two parties were mortal enemies. Without any special reason, the other party would not dare to risk being killed by coming to the Darkness Dominion. It was no wonder that Carmelita and her party would muster such a large force to hunt down those cultivators of the Edict of Life. After learning their origins, Han Shuo felt a little more confident. Those who cultivated in the Edict of Life had a marvelous connection with nature. Once they entered a mountain range filled with ancient trees and a large number of plants, they would be the most difficult group to locate. It was no wonder that Carmelita wanted to borrow them from Erebus. Those who cultivated in the Edict of Life were not only adept at concealing their auras with the help of the natural environment, but they would also not destroy the natural environment. As such, they would leave very few traces as they moved about in the mountain range. On top of that, the mountain range was shrouded in miasma. Even if Han Shuo wanted to locate them, it would not be an easy task. Before descending, for fear that Carmelita would discover him, Han Shuo had released a dozen demon generals through Cauldron Spirit. At this moment, those demon generals were constantly spreading out in all directions, carefully observing every abnormal spot in the mountain range. Suddenly, one of the demon generals, Han Shuo, discovered traces of a battle between magical beasts about 30 miles to his right. There were a few broken trees that had been reconnected using some sort of energy. It was obvious that they had been tampered with by humans. Who else but cultivators of the Edict of Life would be willing to waste time on these plants? "Follow me," shouted Han Shuo and led the way in that direction. After walking for 30 meters, Han Shuo suddenly halted. He turned around to look at the dumbfounded divine guards, then at Carmelita, who was wearing a puzzled face. He smilingly asked, "What, you don't believe me? Did you really discover something? That's impossible. Even Erebus' two subordinates couldn't so easily discover traces of someone cultivating in the Edict of Life in the mountain range. How could you?" Carmelita's triangular eyes were glistening as she cried out in doubt, "My lady, this youngster must be deliberately mystifying us. He is just a puny low god. How could he possibly discover traces of them so quickly?" The plump woman clearly didn't believe Han Shuo at all and straightforwardly expressed her doubts. "If tracking is related to one's realm, Miss Carmelita wouldn't have brought me here. Don't try to act smart, all right?" Han Shuo put on a carefree smile and didn't pay any attention to the plump woman. "Brat, how dare you speak to me in such a manner? Do you believe that I can make you disappear from this place forever with just a flick of my finger?" The plump woman shouted furiously. "Shut up, Karina," Carmelita reprimanded in displeasure. Then, she bunched her sparse brows and asked Han Shuo suspiciously, "Did you really find traces? It's only a distance of 15 kilometers. It won't take long to walk there. If you don't believe me, just follow me and take a look." Han Shuo shrugged and didn't say anything else. He took the lead and headed in that direction. When Han Shuo was about to disappear from their sight, Carmelita softly shouted, "Let's go and take a look. I don't think this fellow has the guts to deceive me. If he really dares to do so, even if he's Donna's friend, I'll make him pay." After she said that, the crowd quickly followed behind Han Shuo. The plump woman, Karina, stared hatefully at Han Shuo's back and was secretly sulking. Soon, they arrived at the area behind Han Shuo. At this moment, Han Shuo was squatting there, pretending to observe something. When Carmelita came to his side, he calmly stood up and pointed at the ancient trees that had been reconnected. He said, "Other than those who cultivate the energy of life, I can't think of anyone who would be so friendly to these trees. What do you guys think?" Carmelita only took a glance at the trees before she immediately cried out in surprise and said, "There are indeed traces of energy of life. That's right, those fellows must have been here." The truth was right in front of them. Karina, who originally intended to embarrass Han Shuo, also covered her mouth and exclaimed softly. When she looked at Han Shuo again, her gaze was already different. In front of Carmelita, Karina hesitated for a moment before she reluctantly said, "I'm sorry, I was indeed narrow-minded. It seems like you really aren't a burden." This woman was straightforward with her words. Although she never gave face to others, she had the courage to admit her mistakes. This was a rare trait. Han Shuo observed for a moment and discovered that Karina seemed to be sincerely apologizing. He knew that this plump woman wasn't a bad person. He nodded in his mind and said, "Forget it, I won't take it to heart." Those divine guards from the House of Saint, who came with Carmelita, also clicked their tongues in amazement. Their gazes, when they looked at Han Shuo, were clearly filled with respect. "Youngster, you do have some tricks up your sleeve. Haha, I knew that Donna wouldn't speak nonsense. Very good. If we can find and kill those fellows, I will reward you. Everyone in the City of Shadows knows that I'm the most generous." Carmelita was very happy and did not conceal her praise for Han Shuo. "All right, before we find those fellows, we will listen to you. Hmm, what should we do next? Carmelita continued to ask. Han Shuo stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile in his heart. That was all he had found through his demon generals. He had absolutely no idea where those people were. Faced with Carmelita's unwavering trust, Han Shuo didn't know what to do. Chapter 698. After hesitating for a moment, Han Shuo decided to tell the truth. Those who cultivate in the Edict of Life have great advantages and conveniences in nature. So far, I have only discovered this one anomaly. What we can do next is to explore and see if we can find any other traces. Is that so? All right then, let's move forward from here and explore deeper into the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range. Carmelita understood that those who cultivate in the Edict of Life were indeed very difficult to deal with. In addition to the fact that Han Shuo had already proven his abilities, she did not feel that Han Shuo was incapable. Therefore, she immediately agreed with Han Shuo. The party continued venturing deeper into the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range. The demon generals that Han Shuo released continued to extend outwards with this region as the center, carefully observing every rock that might contain any clues. As they traveled 100 miles into the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range, they encountered many powerful magical beasts along the way. But under the protection of the divine guards of the House of Saint, those powerful magical beasts kept their distance. They did not dare to provoke this group of terrifyingly powerful gods. After the demon generals spread out, they continued to fly all over the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range. However, they could not find any traces of those people. Carmelita started to get annoyed when she saw that they had arrived at the center of the mountain range. The miasma was getting thicker and thicker. Have you found anything yet? Karina asked Han Shuo again. She was gradually losing her patience. Seeing that there was no trace of those people, she was clearly getting anxious. The Miasma Cloud Mountain Range is too vast. It's impossible to find any clues so quickly. Han Shuo bunched his brows. He felt very helpless that his demon generals could not find any traces of those people. However, there was really nothing he could do. My lady, how about we split up? That way, we can cover a larger area. Karina hesitated for a moment before she asked for Carmelita's opinion. No, if we split up, our chances of finding them will increase. But if we run into them, it will be too dangerous. Perhaps they will be killed by those people before they can send out any information. Carmelita flatly rejected. She sighed helplessly and said, "Let's continue searching. Who knows, we might find some clues very soon." Karina did not insist. She too let out a sigh, and the party followed behind Han Shuo. They started to wander aimlessly around the mountain range. Before he knew it, another 5 days had passed. Although Han Shuo had yet to explore the entire Miasma Cloud Mountain Range, with the help of those demon generals, he had explored every region of the mountain range. However, he did not discover anyone cultivating in the energy of life. All the demon generals found were some magical beasts wandering all over the place and some rare treasures of heaven and earth. Gradually, not only was Karina getting fed up, even Han Shuo himself felt that this wasn't the way to go on. He even started to doubt the reliability of Karina's information, and even suspected that those people had long since left the mountain range. Carmelita, on the other hand, had run out of patience. Along the way, whenever she felt agitated, she would randomly blast the surrounding mountains and ancient trees, making it even more difficult for the demon general to observe her. Perhaps those people are really gone. Come, let's leave this place. After another day, Carmelita lost her patience and officially gave the order to leave. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when she said that. They had long been unwilling to continue doing useless work in the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range. Carmelita made up her mind. No one had any objections, and they prepared to leave the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range. Wait, Han Shuo, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke just as everyone was about to fly into the sky and use the airship to return. What's wrong? Carmelita rolled her triangular eyes and looked at Han Shuo doubtfully. She asked, "We haven't found anything in the past 10 days. Could it be that we have found something before we leave? There is a large cave on a lush mountain in front of us. Magical beasts are constantly coming out of it. I didn't pay attention to it before, but now that I think about it, could there be something strange in that cave? With the help of a demon general, Han Shuo discovered that even more magical beasts were gradually coming out of the cave. He immediately became suspicious. Judging from the behavior of those magical beasts, it seemed that they had been chased out by force. Oh, now that you mention it, I remember now. Some of the small mountains in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range have sparse vegetation, but that mountain is a little strange. The vegetation on it is very lush. Are you talking about that mountain? The one-eyed fat woman, Karina, took the opportunity to ask. She also seemed a little surprised. Yes, that's the mountain, Han Shuo said doubtfully. The vegetation on that mountain is so lush. It seems a little special. Also, the magical beasts in that cave seem to have been chased out. It seems a little strange inside. We have explored so many places in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range, but we haven't found any traces. Could it be that those people are hiding in a cave on one of the mountain peaks? Upon hearing Han Shuo's words, Carmelita, who had given the order to leave, had her hopes reignited. After thinking for a moment, she nodded and said, "What you said makes sense. Come, let's go and take a look. Perhaps there really is something strange in that cave." Under Carmelita's instructions, the party returned to the mountain peak they had passed. When they arrived at the entrance of the cave, they could clearly see some oddly shaped magical beasts walking out of the cave one after another. Some of the magical beasts appeared to be panic-stricken and immediately dispersed when they saw Carmelita and the others. The magical beasts on Elysium were much more powerful than those on Profound Continent. However, their intelligence seemed to be the same. For some reason, although they had long surpassed rank 5 or even rank 6 or 7, Han Shuo hadn't seen many of them that could take human form. In the blink of an eye, the magical beasts scattered in all directions. One of Han Shuo's demon generals took the opportunity to burrow into the cave. The demon generals that entered the cave soon discovered that there were more magical beasts leaving the cave. There were many paths in the cave, and no one knew where they led to. Let's go in and take a look. This place is really strange. Carmelita led the way into the cave. The party, including Han Shuo, followed closely behind her. The cave was extremely spacious. Not long after they entered, they came to a fork in the road. Carmelita didn't know how big the cave was, but she felt that there shouldn't be any danger inside. She finally agreed to split up and investigate after Karina suggested that they should immediately shout for help if they discovered any abnormalities. With 2 forks in the road, Karina volunteered to lead a team of divine guards. Han Shuo naturally followed Carmelita. Gradually, new forks appeared in front of the party. At Carmelita's signal, a few more people split up from the party. As more forks appeared, the number of divine guards around Han Shuo gradually decreased. In the end, only Han Shuo, Carmelita, and 2 divine guards continued to advance. At this point, they didn't run into any more forks. The other demon generals that were roaming around the Miasma Cloud Mountain range entered the cave one after another. They wandered around the complicated cave. Some followed Karina, some followed the other divine guards, and 2 scouted ahead for Han Shuo. The magical beasts they encountered along the way would attack any living being that approached them with all their might. However, against the divine guards, the magical beasts didn't stand a chance. One after another, they were slaughtered in the spacious cave. Suddenly, with the help of one of the demon generals scouted ahead, Han Shuo discovered that there was an enormous lava cave at the end of the cave. The rocks were like red-hot soldering iron. They carried an astonishingly high temperature and were dripping with magma-like red liquid. Faint smoke would rise from the rocks when they touched the ground. The temperature was astonishingly high. Demon generals were cold-blooded by nature. Even they couldn't withstand the high temperature and didn't dare to venture too deep. However, through the observation of his demon general, Han Shuo discovered that there seemed to be some sort of peculiar aura ahead of the lava cave. It was as though someone had formed a chilling aura to expel the heat from the lava cave. Among the party that followed Carmelita to the Miasma Cloud Mountain range, none cultivated in the energy of water. Therefore, the person creating the chilling aura deep in the lava cave was definitely not one of them. Han Shuo immediately determined that there was a problem. He ordered his demon general to retreat a little. Han Shua hastily said to Carmelita, "There should be a lava cave up ahead. The temperature inside is extremely high. However, there seems to be a cooling aura deep in the cave. It seems to come from a god cultivating in the energy of water. I'm certain that there's a problem up ahead. Should we summon the divine guards to investigate the situation?" "Ah, it's true," Carmelita cried out in surprise. Her ugly face revealed genuine joy. She hastily said, "Come, let's hurry up and check out the situation. There's no need to inform those guys. None of them are stronger than me. Even if they come, they won't be able to help us." After hearing her words, Han Shua thought about it and didn't try to persuade her any further. He immediately followed Carmelita and the two divine guards towards the lava cave. With a precise destination in mind, they soon arrived at the demon general's location. As soon as Carmelita stood there, she let out a cold groan and said, "As expected, Brian, you were right. There are indeed people cultivating in the energy of water in there. Recently, the ice goddess and the goddess of nature, god of light, have been very close. It's normal for them to have people cultivating in the energy of water in their party. Right, Brian? You can retreat for now. I will go in and finish them all off." In Carmelita's eyes, Han Shua's strength was meager. A low god couldn't even be considered cannon fodder in such a situation. Carmelita, this ugly girl, still cared about Han Shua's life and death at such a time. This touched Han Shua's heart. He nodded and said, "I understand." Upon finishing those words, Han Shua did not advance but retreated instead. He assumed a posture of, "I'm going to retreat immediately." After pursuing for so long, Carmelita finally discovered traces of her enemies. In her anxiety, she immediately charged into the depths of the lava cave. As she possessed high god strength, she naturally formed a field of destruction around her, isolating all the high-temperature red liquid that dripped down from the lava cave. The two divine guards that came with Carmelita also entered the lava cave very conscientiously. They formed their domains of divinity and utilized the divine energy around them to resist the dangers of the lava cave. They quickly disappeared from Han Shua's sight. It was because the speckles on the surface of the dazzling boulder were moving like stars in a natural trajectory of the Edict of Life. Anyone who cultivated in the Edict of Life could deeply understand the essence of the Edict of Life by comprehending those trajectories. Chapter 699. Having been on Elysium for some time, it was only natural that Han Shua had heard of the Heaven's Gift. There were some places that would magically form this kind of incomparably wondrous rock. Often, the rock would contain the profound mysteries of every major energy. Every god who diligently pursued the profound mysteries of energy could make a breakthrough by comprehending the energy contained in the Heaven's Gift. Heaven's Gift was even rarer than divine essences of other energies. Naturally, its preciousness couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Divine essences could increase one's divine energy, while Heaven's Gift could increase one's understanding of the profound mysteries of energy. It could also be used by multiple people of the same energy. That azure Heaven's Gift was glowing with a misty blue light. The dazzling specks of light on its surface made it seem as though the Heaven's Gift was reflecting the vast and mysterious starry sky. The dazzling stars within the Heaven's Gift were slowly moving according to some kind of marvelous trajectory. It gave one the feeling of being in a dreamland. A god cultivating in the Edict of Life, as long as he earnestly cultivated by looking at the Heaven's Gift and comprehending the moving specks of light on the Heaven's Gift, his understanding of the Edict of Life would be greatly enhanced. Those who cultivated in the Edict of Life had risked their lives to travel thousands of miles to this place. Of course, it was for this enormous Heaven's Gift. There were two types of Heaven's Gifts. The first type could be moved, and the second type would grow according to the terrain. Generally speaking, the Heaven's Gift in the lava cave would lose its miraculous effect as soon as it left the place where it was born. It was obvious that the Heaven's Gift in this lava cave belonged to the second type. Otherwise, those who cultivated in the Edict of Life would have dragged the enormous Heaven's Gift away long ago. When Carmelita saw the Heaven's Gift, she naturally wanted to destroy it at all costs. Otherwise, if she allowed those who cultivated in the Edict of Life to comprehend the profound mysteries of energy, that fella's strength would only grow stronger and stronger. The battle in the lava cave had reached a critical juncture. Under the all-out attacks of two high gods, Carmelita, the ugly genius of the City of Shadows, was in dire straits. Not only was she unable to approach the Heaven's Gift, she had no choice but to repeatedly retreat. Moreover, she had already sustained injuries. Foolish woman, this is the right time to leave. Walk out of this miasma cloud mountain range alive, return to the City of Shadows with a few high gods, and destroy this place. Han Shuo cursed loudly in his heart when he saw Carmelita attempting to destroy the Heaven's Gift while being obstructed by two high gods of the same rank. Soon enough, 6 mid-gods of the energy of life formed a hexagram formation and formed a boundary. They blocked the only exit behind Carmelita, preventing her from leaving the lava cave. Mr. Diska, why are you still hesitating? If we don't kill her, you won't be able to comprehend the force of life and peace once this crazy woman leaves. Moreover, it will be very difficult for us to walk out of the darkness dominion, the icy beauty said coldly with her long silver hair fluttering in the wind. The old man who had been holding back finally snapped out of his hesitation. Perhaps the allure of the Heaven's Gift was too great, but even he, a cultivator of the energy of life, who had never put his life on the line, had no choice but to unleash his full strength at this moment. In this way, Carmelita, who was already exhausted, was in an even more dangerous situation. Under the entanglement of the old man's green twig-like strands of energy, the cold, white-haired beauty repeatedly sent ice divine energy into Carmelita's body, breaking through the defense of Carmelita's destructive force field. Carmelita's footsteps began to stagger. The 6 mid-gods who had constructed the boundary were firmly guarding the only entrance. Not only was the lava cave incomparably sturdy, it was practically impossible for her to break through the thick layer of rock to escape. Soon, Carmelita fell into a real crisis. At this point, not only was it difficult for her to destroy the Heaven's Gift, it was also difficult for her to leave this place alive. It was only at this moment that Han Shuo noticed the remorse and anxiety flashing in Carmelita's eyes. Unfortunately, it was a little too late for this crazy woman to wake up. When Han Shuo saw that Carmelita was about to perish in the hands of the two high gods, after hesitating for a moment, he decided to rescue her. After making up his mind, Han Shuo immediately used Metal Elite Zombie's energy to secretly create a few tunnels in the dense lava cave. Those tunnels only had a thin layer of rock and could be easily broken through to escape. Metal Elite Zombie had an innate ability in this aspect. Even the two high gods couldn't detect his little movements. Very quickly, he helped Han Shuo set up everything. Han Shuo flew around through the tunnels that Metal Elite Zombie created in the lava cave. He was trying to find a suitable position from which to bring Carmelita in. The white-haired beauty stabbed Carmelita's abdomen with a slender and long ice sword. Carmelita let out a shrill and miserable shriek. Her body involuntarily shot towards one of the rock walls that Metal Elite Zombie had tampered with. Han Shuo was overjoyed and hastily dashed towards that area. Boom! That layer of rock wall was blasted apart by her body. It was at this moment that Han Shuo arrived. He immediately grabbed Carmelita by the back of her clothes and fled into the depths of the lava cave with all his might. Unfortunately, the passageways inside were twisting and turning. In her haste, she simply couldn't figure out the way back and could only circle around in a small area. According to Han Shuo's demon generals, Han Shuo believed that once that woman who cultivated in the energy of water killed those divine guards of the House of Saint, Karina would not be able to escape death. Damn it, it doesn't matter if I'm carrying one burden or two. After hesitating for a moment, Han Shuo decided to help that plump woman Karina. He ordered Metal Elite Zombie to split open a tunnel not far away. Han Shuo suddenly emerged from the tunnel and shouted, "Follow me!" Karina was startled by Han Shuo, who suddenly popped his head out from behind a rock wall. She subconsciously prepared to attack Han Shuo, but just as she was about to attack, she discovered that he wasn't an enemy. At this moment, Karina was flustered. As soon as she saw someone leading the way, she didn't even think twice before burrowing into the rock wall. As soon as Karina entered the cave, Han Shuo hastily continued to rush forward. Karina didn't even think or utter a single word as she closely followed behind Han Shuo. Metal Elite Zombie, who was hiding in the middle of the rock wall, also took the opportunity to walk out from the rock stratum behind Karina and closed up the cave that was opened up. The demon general had already figured out the situation inside the mountain. On top of that, with Metal Elite Zombie, the king of the mountain, Han Shuo quickly made his way out of the mountain using the fastest path he could. Carrying the muddle-headed Carmelita in his hand, Han Shuo continued his escape plan, flying forward at top speed. Karina followed closely behind Han Shuo. As soon as they walked out of the dimly lit mountainside, she immediately discovered Carmelita in Han Shuo's hand. She cried out involuntarily in alarm. "What happened to Miss? What happened to Miss?" Her voice was filled with sincere concern. She seemed very anxious. As a mid-god, Karina's speed wasn't much slower than Han Shuo's. Han Shuo briefly described what happened to Karina before he softly shouted, "Now is not the time for nonsense. Here, take Carmelita with you. We need to leave the Miasma Cloud Mountain range as soon as possible. There are 2 high gods of extraordinary strength here, as well as the Heaven's Gift. We have to leave this place and invite experts to come with us. Only then will we have absolute certainty of victory." After receiving Carmelita from Han Shuo, the one-eyed plump woman knew that the situation was urgent. She flew high into the sky above the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. She wanted to bring Carmelita away from this dangerous mountain range as quickly as possible. "Get down here," Han Shuo shouted angrily. He hastily explained to Karina's puzzled gaze, the Miasma Cloud Mountain range is a natural barrier. Miasma is everywhere in this place. Moreover, the peculiar miasma has the miraculous effect of obstructing divine senses. It is safest for us to escape from the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. Once you fly high into the sky and escape from the cover of the miasma, you will lose this natural barrier and the chances of being discovered and pursued will be greater. Karina had been acting irrationally because she was worried about Carmelita's condition. But after hearing Han Shuo's explanation, she immediately understood that Han Shuo's method was the correct one for the time being. She hastily stopped her ascending body and quickly descended. She cast a grateful glance at Han Shuo before flying towards the outskirts of the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. At this moment, with the help of his demon generals, Han Shuo discovered that the white-haired beauty was leading 6 mid-gods of the Edict of Life. Her hands were covered in blood as she rushed out from the belly of the mountain. After sensing with her divine soul for a moment, she suspiciously looked all around and immediately chased after Han Shuo and Karina. Her speed was obviously faster than Karina's. "She's coming." Han Shuo's expression changed. He hastily said to Karina, who was running in a panic, "Follow me. Do not destroy any vegetation. Otherwise, she will be able to track us down." That white-haired beauty was able to determine the correct direction because she had discovered the footprints Karina left behind when she was in a hurry. Han Shuo was afraid that Karina would make another mistake and hastily reminded her, "I'll give you the young lady. Take her and leave safely. I'll think of a way to distract the pursuers." Karina seemed to have realized that she couldn't bring Carmelita out of the Miasma Cloud Mountain range alive. When she saw that Han Shuo was terrifyingly rational under such circumstances, she felt that Carmelita's chances of survival would be the highest if she distracted the pursuers. Therefore, she didn't even ask for Han Shuo's opinion. She stuffed Carmelita into Han Shuo's hands while she deliberately left behind some tracks and headed in another direction. Han Shuo didn't even have the time to stop her from doing something foolish. Her plump figure had already disappeared. Han Shuo immediately felt some respect for her as he watched her resolute departing figure. He knew that although this woman treated people coldly and mercilessly, she could be trusted at critical moments. Han Shuo knew that the odds were against her. However, this was her decision and Han Shuo didn't stop her. He didn't continue to lament at such a critical moment. He sent a demon general to follow her while he flew in the opposite direction. With Karina risking her life to lead the way, Han Shuo discovered that the ice-cold woman was indeed chasing after her. Miasma was everywhere in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. Visibility was extremely low, and the sensitivity of one's consciousness was greatly reduced. After leaving Han Shuo's side, Karina, who had made up her mind to sacrifice herself, calmed down. She didn't make another low-level mistake. She took advantage of the unique environment of the Miasma Cloud Mountain range to maintain a suitable distance from the pursuers. 3 days later, the distance between the two grew larger and larger. Han Shuo had also arrived at the exit of the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. Demon generals couldn't be too far away from Cauldron Spirit in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. Han Shuo had no choice but to recall the demon general that had been following Karina. This way, he wouldn't know if Karina was still alive or not. Not long after leaving the Miasma Cloud Mountain range, a vast river appeared before Han Shuo. Without much hesitation, Han Shuo brought the still muddle-headed ugly girl, Carmelita, and sprinted at full speed. Without anyone spying on them, Han Shuo used his demonic yuan to activate the art of the demonic ninth heavens and increased his speed to the maximum. It took them half a day to cross the river and arrive at a swamp. Ugh. It was only then that Carmelita, who had been muddle-headed for the past few days, gradually regained consciousness. Her lifeless eyes gradually regained their luster. Carmelita's divine soul had adjusted from that state. At this moment, Han Shuo took the opportunity to place Carmelita on a mud mound at the center of the swamp. He maintained a distance of a few steps from Carmelita and waited for her to fully awaken. The reason why Carmelita was muddle-headed was because Diska's life energy had affected her divine soul and bound her life energy. In addition to the heavy injuries inflicted on her divine body by the icy beauty, she had only just regained consciousness. What is this place? Why are you the only one here? Where are the others? Finally, Carmelita slowly opened her triangular eyes. She saw Han Shuo not far away and asked with a frown. Han Shuo let out a faint sigh and said, "They should all be dead. Even Karina might not have survived." Sigh. After letting out a sigh, Han Shuo recounted what happened in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range to Carmelita. She listened attentively to Han Shuo's narration. Although she wore a wooden face, Han Shuo discovered sorrow in her triangular eyes. All dead. All dead. Even Karina is dead. It's my fault. I didn't expect that 2 high gods would come. If I hadn't acted rashly, they wouldn't have died. Carmelita's triangular eyes were filled with tears as she muttered to herself. Although this woman was a little ugly, when Han Shuo saw her heartfelt sorrow for those who died, he felt that she was a pretty good leader. It was at this moment that Han Shuo felt that he should do something. After thinking for a moment, he said in a deep voice, "It's not your fault. You don't have to blame yourself. Besides, this isn't the time for you to blame yourself. We should return to the City of Shadows as soon as possible and mobilize the experts in the city to eliminate those people in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. We should destroy the Heaven's Gift in that mountain. That's right. I want them to pay with their blood. Those people can forget about leaving the Miasma Cloud Mountain range alive." Carmelita roared furiously. She stood up all of a sudden and was about to return to the City of Shadows as fast as she could. However, when she stood up, she suddenly let out a muffled groan. She noticed that the wound on her abdomen had been bandaged. "You were the one who bandaged it for me? And you were the one who dragged me out from the mountain?" Carmelita subconsciously covered her abdomen. Her triangular eyes glanced at Han Shuo and asked puzzledly, "Yes, you are gravely injured. Don't recklessly use your divine energy. I will bring you back to the City of Shadows as soon as possible." Han Shuo nodded. After Han Shuo admitted to it, Carmelita sized up Han Shuo with a strange expression for a while. After a long while, she resolutely promised, "After this incident, I will look after you in the City of Shadows. No matter who you offend in the City of Shadows, I will help you. Even if you have a conflict with Donna, I will support you." "Then I will thank you in advance." Han Shuo smiled. He walked over and grabbed Carmelita's arm, flying with her in the direction of the City of Shadows at full speed. Chapter 700. Carmelita was gravely injured. Naturally, Han Shuo took care of her along the way. With the medicinal pellets he personally refined, Carmelita's wounds healed very quickly. Even the frigid air in her body was slowly diluted by the medicinal pellets. When Carmelita saw that Han Shuo wasn't a healer but could refine something even more miraculous than a healer's medicines, she thought to herself that she had indeed picked up a treasure. As a gravely injured person, she could best appreciate the miraculousness of Han Shuo's medicinal pellets. She kept staring at Han Shuo all the way and asked him questions about them. Medicinal pellets did not belong to the category of demonic arts. Therefore, Han Shuo wasn't afraid that powerful enemies of Gu Tianxie, the exalted demon lord, would be able to track him down through this. Therefore, he made up a story to Carmelita, claiming that an old pharmacist on Profound Continent had imparted it to him. Carmelita even believed him. So it turned out that even low-level material planes had wondrous people. As the Miasma Cloud Mountain range was too far from the City of Shadows, Han Shuo had to fly with Carmelita for half a month. During this time, Carmelita and Han Shuo got along very well. Han Shuo would tell her about the interesting things that happened on Profound Continent. Now and then, he would add in some of his experiences on Earth. Carmelita clicked her tongue in wonder as she listened. Her terrible mood from the deaths of her subordinates gradually improved. During their conversation, Han Shuo learned that Carmelita had few friends due to her ugly appearance and bad temper. She would occasionally have one or two friends who were female. Donna was one of them. She had almost no male friends. They would either stay far away from her when they saw her or treat her like a master. This made her feel very bored. She knew that she was ugly and therefore spent all her time and energy on cultivation. Due to her appearance, she was easily angered and easily went berserk. Her personality became more and more eccentric. In addition to her strength and status, not many people dared to provoke her. Slowly, she became an anomaly in the City of Shadows, an evil woman that no one dared to provoke. But during this period of time, Han Shuo had interacted with her after she'd been injured and discovered that she actually had a good nature. It was only because everyone treated her differently that she became so strange. Before they returned to the City of Shadows, the two had become best friends in the short dozen or so days they spent together. Han Shuo treated her injuries, and from time to time, he would take the opportunity to ask her questions about the energy of destruction. Carmelita did not know that Han Shuo cultivated in the energy of destruction. Although she found it strange that Han Shuo would ask her about it, she explained her cultivation experience to Han Shuo in detail. It was true that Carmelita was extremely ugly, but everyone in the City of Shadows knew that she was a genius in the energy of destruction. This was something that Han Shuo soon had a deep understanding of. In just a dozen or so days, Han Shuo had gained a deeper understanding of the energy of destruction from this high god of destruction. Many things that were previously fuzzy suddenly became much clearer. One day, while discussing with Carmelita, Han Shuo's avatar that had been stuck in the realm of mid-stage low god was suddenly enlightened. He entered a silent state of breakthrough inside the cauldron of myriad demon. The two felt that time passed very quickly. On the 17th day, Han Shuo and Carmelita arrived at the City of Shadows. With Carmelita, the wicked woman of the City of Shadows, by his side, Han Shuo did not encounter any obstructions along the way. They arrived at the Saint residence at the center of the city. The Saint residence was located at the center of the City of Shadows and was also the City Lord's mansion. As the oldest family clan in the city, the House of Saint was even more powerful than the House of Lavers. When the divine guards of the House of Saint saw Han Shuo supporting Carmelita, they immediately caused a huge commotion in the Saint residence. In an instant, the entire Saint residence seemed to be bustling with activity. The family divine guards and elders of the Saint residence hastily surrounded Carmelita and started asking her about her condition. Although Carmelita was a little ugly in the House of Saint, she had a very high status in the family due to her superb strength. Moreover, she was the daughter of the city lord. Therefore, she was highly regarded by the family. Now that she was seriously injured, the entire House of Saint became busy. They quarreled for her sake. It was only when the patriarch of the House of Saint, the current city lord of the City of Shadows, Wallace Saint hurried over that everything calmed down. Wallace Saint was Carmelita's father. As a late-stage high god cultivating in the energy of darkness, Wallace gave off a majestic aura. He had a head of long, jet-black hair and a pair of dark gray eyes that glistened with divine light. He was more than 2 meters tall and had a sturdy body. When he stood there, he looked like an overbearing mountain. "What's going on?" Wallace asked in a deep voice as he supported Carmelita with his large hands. "There is a piece of heaven's gift in the Miasma Cloud Mountain range. This is something our intelligence agency did not know. When I brought my men there, I discovered 2 high gods." Carmelita anxiously recounted the entire incident to Wallace when she saw her father coming over. After Carmelita finished, Wallace put on a grave face and said, "Stay at home and recuperate. You don't have to worry about the rest. I will send my men to take care of it." "No, I want to go. I want to see those people die in front of us," Carmelita said in a stern voice. It was obvious that she blamed herself for the deaths of those people. "I told you to stay at home and recuperate. If your injuries aren't healed, you can't go anywhere." Wallace straightforwardly refused. He turned to a gentle-looking middle-aged man and instructed, "Second brother, keep a close eye on her." "Understood, elder brother." Wallace's younger brother Andre nodded. He smilingly said, "Don't worry, I will make sure she recovers at the fastest speed possible. Elder brother, just go and do what you need to do." "All right." Wallace was immediately relieved after hearing his younger brother's words. Just as he was about to leave to take care of this matter, he suddenly saw Han Shuo standing to the side and looking around in boredom. Wallace stared blankly for a moment. After thinking for a moment, he put on a pleasant face and said, "You are Brian, right?" "Yes, I'm Brian." Han Shuo was rather flattered that Wallace, the most powerful person in the City of Shadows, had suddenly spoken to her. However, she did not show any signs of panic. She nodded very calmly, neither servile nor overbearing. Han Shuo's calmness naturally surprised Wallace. He nodded in his mind and smilingly said, "Thank you for saving Han Shuo. Keep this badge well. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, you can bring this badge to our House of Saint for help." "Oh, thank you." Han Shuo did not stand on ceremony. He casually thanked Wallace and accepted the badge. The badge was pitch black and had the emblem of the House of Saint engraved on it. It was extremely heavy. Han Shuo did not know what material it was made of, but it looked very exquisite. "All right, I have some matters to attend to. My daughter doesn't have many friends. If you have time in the future, feel free to visit the Saint residence. I believe she will welcome you very much." Wallace put on a friendly smile and quickly left with a group of gloomy divine guards. He immediately disappeared from Han Shuo's sight. As the most powerful man in the City of Shadows, Wallace was known for his ruthlessness and ruthlessness. He would not stop until his enemies were completely annihilated. The number of family clans he had annihilated numbered in the hundreds, if not hundreds. To be able to stand out in the House of Saint, it could be said that he had stepped on corpses along the way. He was by no means a benevolent person. However, Wallace was never stingy with his generosity towards his friends. As long as they were allies that had no conflict of interest with him, he would be very friendly. This was also the reason why the City of Shadows had always been safe and sound despite being in charge of it for so many years. After Wallace disappeared from Han Shuo's sight, Andre kept persuading Carmelita smilingly. Carmelita knew that although her father usually doted on her, once he had made a decision, no one could change his mind. After her father, Wallace, left, she had no choice but to accept her fate. It was at this moment that Andre started arranging for some healers to help her. "There's no need to hire any healers. Brian has already stabilized my injuries. I just need to use divine essences to recuperate for a period of time. I will be as good as new within a year." Carmelita complained impatiently, hinting to Andre not to waste any more time. Han Shuo couldn't help but smile wryly when he heard Carmelita talking about using divine essences to recuperate for a period of time. He thought to himself, as expected of a large family clan, even something as precious as divine essences can be used to recuperate. What Han Shuo did not know was that Carmelita was a special character in the House of Saint. As a genius who could cultivate to high god realm in such a short period of time, no matter how much she resembled a demon, she would receive the grandest treatment. If it were any other descendant of the family clan, they wouldn't be treated as well as Carmelita. Let alone recuperating with divine essences, they probably wouldn't even have the opportunity to increase their divine energy. This was the difference in reality. Andre obviously didn't trust Han Shua too much. After hearing Carmelita's words, he kindly advised, "It's better to get a healer to take a look. After all, that friend of yours isn't a professional healer. There are some things he can't do at the same time." "Second uncle, you are so annoying. I came back with Brian. I know him better than you do." Carmelita impatiently showed the wound on her abdomen to Andre and said, "Look, with Brian's medicine, my wound has completely healed in a dozen or so days. Do you think an ordinary healer can do this?" The more powerful a god was, the longer it would take for their wounds to heal, and the longer it would take for them to recuperate. Carmelita was a high god. Even with the help of a healer, she would need at least a month to recover from a wound that penetrated her divine body. However, Han Shua's medicine had cut the time by half. Andre wasn't an ignorant person. He immediately cried out in surprise when he saw the wound on Carmelita's abdomen. He looked at Han Shua with some disbelief and asked, Brian, you are Brian, right? You were the one who bandaged Carmelita's wound?" "Cut the crap, second uncle. Hurry up and get me some divine essences. I need to recuperate from my internal injuries as soon as possible," Carmelita impatiently urged when she saw Andre's doubtful expression. Andre gave Han Shua a few strange glances, but didn't interrogate Han Shua in detail. He nodded and left. Han Shua noticed that when Carmelita asked Andre to get divine essences for her, the surrounding descendants of the House of Saint revealed looks of envy. It seemed that as they weren't geniuses, they wouldn't be able to enjoy the same treatment as Carmelita. "Brian, why don't you stay in our house for a while? I will properly thank you after I have recovered from my injuries," Carmelita invited. "Forget it. I'm not used to living in your family home, but I will stay in the City of Shadows for a while. When you have recovered from your injuries, I will come and visit you," Han Shua said. There would always be all kinds of troubles in these ancient and large family clans. What Han Shua feared the most at present was trouble, and therefore, he didn't want to provoke them. "Brat, don't wait until I have fully recovered. Come and visit me every month or two. Even if it's just to chat with me, that's fine. I don't have any friends in the City of Shadows that I can get along with. Even if I have a few friends, they seem to have ulterior motives when interacting with me. You are the only one I like the most. Remember, if you don't visit me often, as long as you are in the City of Shadows, I will be able to find you." Carmelita did not stop Han Shua when she saw that he had made up his mind. She merely glared at Han Shua threateningly with her triangular eyes. Han Shua forced a smile and nodded in agreement. He waited until Carmelita started giggling in satisfaction before walking out of the Saint residence. Although Carmelita was ugly, after interacting with her, Han Shua discovered that she did not have any ulterior motives. She treated him like a friend without any ulterior motives. This made Han Shua feel very comfortable. Donna and Han Shua could be considered friends, and their relationship could be said to be very harmonious. However, Han Shua knew that Donna was trying to rope him into the Lavers family. She was so cordial and friendly and trying to rope him in mostly because of her own worth, unlike Carmelita who had no ulterior motives. Han Shua sighed in his heart when he thought of this. No wonder Carmelita said that even though she had a few friends, she didn't interact with her without any ulterior motives. Who is she? She's a genius of the House of Saint, the most favored daughter of City Lord Wallace of the City of Shadows. It's impossible that her friends wouldn't have any ulterior motives. For example, Donna. As Han Shua's imagination ran wild, no one from the House of Saint stopped Han Shua from leaving. When he returned to the wide streets of the City of Shadows and was thinking about what he should do next, he suddenly received a message from Little Skull. Han Shua, who had not received a message from Little Skull for a long time, felt very warm in his heart. He rented a common gymnasium and summoned the Little Skull. He wanted to ask why Little Skull sent him a message. "Father, we have completely conquered the Netherworld. The aura of death on this continent is even denser. After some discussion, we feel that it's time to develop on this continent. Little Skull stood in front of Han Shuo and spoke in a childish voice, giving Han Shuo yet another fright. Chapter 701. Little Skull, Metal Elite Zombie, Wood Elite Zombie, Earth Elite Zombie, Water Elite Zombie, and Fire Elite Zombie lined up in a row inside the special boundary field. The 6 new life forms that had gained intelligence were looking at Han Shuo with eyes brimming with anticipation, waiting for Han Shuo's opinion. Among the 6, Little Skull was a low god cultivating in the energy of death and had reached the mid-stage low god realm. Wood Elite Zombie, Fire Elite Zombie, Earth Elite Zombie, and Water Elite Zombie, due to the fortuitous encounters they had ascended to the mid-stage low god realm. Wood Elite Zombie, who had obtained the energy from the Tree of Life, had also reached the mid-stage low god realm, just like Little Skull. Apart from Metal Elite Zombie, the strength of the 6 had increased by an astonishing amount. In addition to the transformations they had undergone after absorbing the energy of gods, each of them possessed the innate talent of their own element. They were born with the ability to utilize the energy of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. With this talent, they could cultivate in the energy of various elements. Han Shuo dared not imagine what they would become in the future. The elemental energies on Elysium were so dense that it was indeed a suitable place for them to cultivate. However, there were too many factions on Elysium, and many places were filled with dangerous battles. Although the 6 of them had gained intelligence, Han Shuo was still worried. Besides, they could not all stay with him. Otherwise, it would not be a pleasant thing for both them and Han Shuo. Han Shuo was in a dilemma. He was hesitant as he did not know how to decide whether the 6 should stay or leave. Father, we have thought it through. We want to venture outside by ourselves. Don't worry, after staying in the netherworld for so long, we know how to deal with danger. We also understand the situation on this continent. Just let us go and let us go, suggested Han Shuo. Little Skull had been with Han Shuo for the longest time, and was the one who had evolved the fastest in the party. When he saw that Han Shuo was in a dilemma, he suggested, "How can I do that? How can I do that? This place isn't like the netherworld. Experts are everywhere on Elysium. A lone ranger could very well encounter unimaginable dangers. How can I be at ease?" Han Shuo had a terrible headache. Han Shuo had poured too much emotion into these 6 new lives. Every time he thought of the dangers they might encounter, he wanted to keep them in the netherworld forever. Father, we can only grow when we encounter danger. Don't worry, Father. We all have innate abilities. As long as we live in a suitable place, we will be able to escape from danger. Father, only the aura of death is abundant in the netherworld. It's simply not suitable for the 5 of us to develop. We want to become stronger. We don't want to always rely on Father's strength. We've all grown up. The Earth Elite Zombie said loudly as he rubbed his head and puffed out his chest. In Han Shuo's eyes, the 6 of them were still children who had yet to grow up. Although Han Shuo knew that they were indeed very safe in some special places with their innate abilities, he still did not dare to let them leave. Father, we know a little about the situation on this continent. After we leave with you, we will split up and go to the other abysses. Little Water will go to the Divine Dominion, and Little Wood will go to the Life Dominion. In those places, we are all people who cultivate in the same profound energy. As long as we don't cause any trouble, we shouldn't encounter any danger. Only by coming into contact with those powerful and advanced life forms can we evolve and become stronger faster. Little Skull looked at Han Shuo and continued to try to persuade Han Shuo. The others also chimed in. They seemed to have already discussed what to do in the netherworld. One reason after another, methods to deal with the enemy, came out of their mouths one after another. Many of those words were very childish, but some of them were indeed very practical. It seemed that they were not acting on impulse. Han Shuo listened to the discussion of the 6 little ones with a bitter smile. He suddenly had the feeling that his son had grown up and wanted to make his own decisions. This feeling made him feel somewhat gratified, but more than that, there was a sour feeling in his heart. The reluctance in his heart could not be dispelled no matter how hard he tried. However, Han Shuo also knew that what the six of them said did make some sense. According to them, the netherworld had already been conquered by them. There was no longer anyone or anything in the netherworld that could threaten them. Just like how Han Shuo had insisted on leaving Elysium in the beginning, living in a world without an opponent was a very helpless and painful thing, especially when one knew that there was an even vaster and boundless world out there. After thinking for a long time, and under the incessant begging of the six little ones, rationality finally won over emotion. In the end, Han Shuo helplessly nodded and said, "All right, I agree to let you leave me and develop in other dominions. Perhaps this is indeed the most suitable opportunity for you. However, you must promise me one thing." "We promise," the six little ones said in unison. "No matter what, you must protect your own lives." Han Shuo solemnly exhorted, "Only by living well can you continue to grow stronger. You must remember this." "Understood, Father. We will protect ourselves." Little Skull nodded. The other five little ones also nodded. "Also, we must keep in touch. Every 50 years, we must gather at Ethereal City, the main city of the Space Dominion. No matter what happens, you must come to the main city of the Space Dominion every 50 years. The time will be counted from today onwards." "Understood?" Han Shuo instructed. Upon hearing that they could travel alone, the six little ones cheered and expressed their understanding. They immediately agreed to it. Seeing how excited they were, Han Shuo felt helpless. He understood that they had grown up and did not want to be tied down by a tiny netherworld. There was nothing he could do about it. For a period of time after that, Han Shuo never left the gymnasium he rented. He stayed with the six little ones and helped them understand the dangers of Elysium more quickly. He told them about the ways of the world, what they should pay attention to, and who they should not trust. Relying on his own experience, Han Shuo shared everything he knew without holding anything back. He did not care if they could comprehend it or not. 2 months later, when Han Shuo discovered that he had nothing more to say to the six little fellas who were nagging at him every day, he had no choice but to go to a remote wasteland outside the City of Shadows and summon the six little fellas one by one. "Remember, you must live well." Before they parted, Han Shuo exhorted them again and again. Even he himself felt that he was becoming more and more like a long-winded old man. After listening to Han Shuo's lecture for 2 months, the six little ones put on bitter faces when they saw that Han Shuo was about to give up. They looked at Han Shuo pitifully and begged Han Shuo to stop. "Anyways, remember everything I've said. Remember every single one of them. Protect yourselves and don't stir up trouble for me." Han Shuo's mouth was parched from talking so much that he finally stopped. He waved his hand and said a bit desolately, Go. Be a bit more promising. I won't be seeing you guys off." "Father, you will be proud of us in the future." The six little ones promised one after another. They were all somewhat sad, but more than that, they were happy to be freed from Han Shuo's nagging. After bidding farewell to Han Shuo, the six little ones hastily disappeared from his sight, as though afraid that Han Shuo would continue talking. Han Shuo sighed as he watched them turn into tiny dots and disappear from his sight. He knew that the six little ones' departure this time was not as simple as returning to the netherworld. In the future, he could no longer rely on necromancy magic to bring the six back to his side. However, Han Shuo had no idea that the six little ones who left him today would bring a great shock to the Elysium in the near future. Many years later, when the six little ones had all become overlords of their own territories, Han Shuo would realize what this separation meant for the Elysium continent. *****. By the time they returned to the City of Shadows, Han Shuo had yet to recover from his desolate state. Before entering the city, Han Shuo handed over his divine tablet and an amethyst coin. After that arrogant divine guard examined Han Shuo's divine tablet, he suddenly put on a somewhat strange expression. "Are you Brian?" The arrogant divine guard suddenly became polite and asked Han Shuo in an amiable manner. Han Shuo nodded and asked, "What's wrong?" The last time Han Shuo and Carmelita entered the City of Shadows through this gate, the divine guard did not recognize Han Shuo. Miss Carmelita is looking for you. If you are that Brian, You'd better go and meet her at once. The divine guard handed over Han Shua's divine tablet with both hands. The purple crystal coin was also placed on top of the divine tablet. He did not dare to accept it. Han Shua put on a bitter face after hearing those words. It was only then that he recalled what Carmelita had told him. She had told him to visit her every once in a while. It appeared that the 2 months had indeed passed. It was at this moment that Han Shua realized just how resourceful Carmelita was in the City of Shadows. Even the divine guards at the city gates received the message with just one command. Understood. Han Shua nodded with a bitter face. He casually took the divine tablet and the purple crystal coin and walked into the city. Hey, why doesn't that youngster have to pay an amethyst coin? He's not even a member of the House of Saint. A few people queuing behind Han Shua started to complain. Shut up. We don't need you to teach us how to do things. If you continue to spout nonsense, none of you will be allowed into the city. The divine guard, who had been polite and amiable towards Han Shua, suddenly put on a cold face and shouted irritably. The few people who complained lowered their heads and dared not say another word. In the City of Shadows, the House of Saint was royalty. As outsiders, they had all heard of how terrifying the House of Saint was. Therefore, when they heard the divine guard's rebuke, they all shut their mouths. Han Shua's mood suddenly improved a little when he saw their sullen faces. He thought to himself that it really does feel good to have special privileges. Having brought Han Shua back to the Saint residence, the divine guards at the gates of the Saint residence recognized Han Shua. In addition to Carmelita's instructions, Han Shua was led by a respectful divine guard all the way to the place where Carmelita cultivated. Brat, hurry up and come up here. You took so long to see me. Before Han Shua could enter, Carmelita's voice sounded from the top of a raised platform on the 50-meter-tall building. The interior of the Saint residence was also protected by a defensive boundary. Unless one was a mid-god, one would not be able to fly above the boundary. Although Han Shua could use demonic arts to fly to Carmelita's side, doing so would expose his true strength. Therefore, he had no choice but to obediently climb up the stairs. Oh, you're here too, big sister Karina. Han Shua asked in a friendly manner when he saw the one-eyed fat woman. Han Shua was rather surprised that she was able to make it to this place alive. Nice to meet you, Brian. If it wasn't for you, my lady and I wouldn't have been able to walk out of that mountain. I have yet to properly thank you. Now that you have come, I will formally thank you, said Karina as she stood up. In a very formal manner, she followed the etiquette of Elysium and greeted Han Shua. Don't mention it. It's my duty. We are companions to begin with. Han Shua smiled amiably and hastily walked towards the plump woman to stop her from completing the etiquette. All right, Karina. You may return to what I have instructed you to do. Carmelita waved her hand, indicating that Karina could leave. Karina put on a faint smile, bowed at Han Shua, and left. After Karina left, Carmelita angrily said, God damn it. Those bastards disappeared without a trace. By the time our men got there, all that was left was a destroyed piece of heaven's gift. This is infuriating. Even without Carmelita's reminder, Han Shua had already guessed that this would be the outcome. Since Han Shua had escaped with Carmelita, and the situation in the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range had been exposed, those outsiders who had ventured deep into the Darkness Dominion would have no choice but to flee as soon as possible. It would be a wonder if they would stay there and wait for their deaths. So what if they escaped? You have memorized their faces. As long as you keep investigating, it's only a matter of time before you find them. In the future, when you are stronger, you can go to the Life Dominion and the Water Dominion and get rid of them. You'll have your revenge then. Han Shua consoled smilingly. Talking to you is so satisfying. Not bad. I'm about to find out who those people are. When I recover from my injuries and find out where they are, I'll make them pay with their blood. Carmelita said hatefully. Han Shua thought to himself, you better not go to the Life Dominion and the Water Dominion like crazy. Once your traces are found in those two places, it'll be hard to say what will happen to you. You might die even faster. Han Shua didn't dare to provoke her verbally. By the way, where have you been hiding all this time? Why didn't you come to see me? Carmelita narrowed her triangular eyes and started interrogating Han Shuo. I consulted you about a lot of the energy of destruction the last time. I took the opportunity to comprehend it, so I didn't come to see you, Han Shuo explained. Carmelita rolled her eyes at him and grumbled. You cultivate in the energy of death, and yet you insist on asking me questions about the energy of destruction. What are you trying to comprehend blindly? How can someone like you achieve anything in the energy of death if you don't focus on proper cultivation? Han Shuo smiled but did not explain. Carmelita didn't seem to care about Han Shuo's strength. She said casually, forget it. Since you have come to see me, I have a great deal to recommend to you. What deal? Han Shuo was stunned. The medicinal pellet you gave me last time was very miraculous. I have mentioned it to my second uncle, and he is also very interested in that medicinal pellet of yours. The descendants of our family clans in the City of Shadows are sent to all sorts of places to carry out missions from a young age. Injuries are unavoidable. With that medicinal pellet of yours, our chances of survival will increase by a lot. I have discussed it with my second uncle, and we have officially invited you to become the ace pharmacist of our House of Saint. Not interested. I don't want to be bound by any large family clan, not even your House of Saint. Han Shuo shrugged and rejected this opportunity that many people dreamed of. Ha, I knew you would refuse. Carmelita laughed heartily and said, that's more like it. Joining a large family clan requires you to abide by many rules, but some fools just have to squeeze their way in. Actually, what I really meant was for my second uncle to order those medicinal pellets from you. You can also open a shop like this in the City of Shadows, and I will advertise it for you. You will definitely make a lot of money. In the City of Shadows, as long as you have money and power, as well as some contributions, you can establish a small family clan of your own. With my protection, no one will dare to do anything to you. Why do you have to suffer the stink of others? It seemed that Carmelita had already thought of everything for Han Shuo. She really wanted to repay Han Shuo for saving her and Karina's life. She had very meticulously thought out every step for Han Shuo. Han Shuo's eyes lit up after hearing Carmelita's words. He was truly tempted. By refining medicinal pellets, Han Shuo was not afraid of being exposed, nor would he have to expose his true strength. On top of that, he could accumulate wealth and, according to Carmelita, he might even have the opportunity to establish a family clan of his own. To Han Shuo, this was indeed a great temptation. Han Shuo had promised Emily and the others that he would bring them to Profound Continent once he had established himself on Elysium. Han Shuo had quite a few friends on Profound Continent. After learning about the convenience and unique advantages of cultivation on Elysium, Han Shuo was even more eager to improve the strength of his friends and family. If Han Shuo could truly establish himself in the City of Shadows, accumulate wealth and power, and gain the qualifications to establish a family clan of his own, Han Shuo believed that his safety would be guaranteed by the House of Saint's strength and status in the city. With that, Emily and the others would be able to come to Elysium ahead of schedule. Carmelita saw that Han Shuo's eyes were glistening and knew that Han Shuo was tempted. With the thought of repaying Han Shuo, she struck while the iron was hot and said, "Don't worry, with your miraculous medicinal pellets, you will definitely achieve great things in the City of Shadows. As long as you accumulate enough wealth and make some contributions, I will beg my father to grant you the qualifications to establish a family clan. At that time, you can bring your friends over and use your wealth to recruit experts into your family clan. The 4 major family clans have worked their way up step by step. If they can do it, so can you." Han Shuo, who had been tempted for a long time, finally made up his mind after hearing Carmelita's bewitching words. He nodded and replied in a deep voice, "All right, I will go all out in the City of Shadows." Chapter 702. Within a discussion hall of the Saint residence, Carmelita and Andre were engaged in a heated discussion. Han Shuo sat across from the two and listened to their conversation with a smile on his face. "Second uncle, each of those medicinal pellets is worth at least 100 black crystal coins. Their effects are just too miraculous," Carmelita said in a deep voice. Lass, don't you know what 100 black crystal coins means? Why don't you know how to save it for the family? Andre shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. If I say it's worth 100 black crystal coins, then it's worth it. Don't you believe me, second uncle? Carmelita said in displeasure. At least wait until I see if the medicinal pellets are really that effective. I know that you have a good relationship with Brian, but you have to distinguish between work and personal matters. Andre sighed. He thought to himself, if you don't take care of the household, how would you know the troubles of a large family? If those medicinal pellets aren't worth that price, I will be the first person your father will lecture, not you. Brian, give him a medicinal pellet. Let him find someone to try it on, Carmelita instructed. Han Shuo knew that Carmelita was doing all this to help him and felt rather touched. He took a medicinal pellet and handed it to Andre, explaining how to use it. Brian, don't worry. As long as the medicinal pellets are worth the price, with this lass helping you, we won't purposely lower the price. After I try it, we can discuss the details of our partnership. Andre was very polite to Han Shuo out of respect for Carmelita. Of course, Han Shuo nodded smilingly. Andre left with Han Shuo's medicinal pellets. It was time to test the medicinal pellets. Han Shuo was very confident in the pill of rejuvenation he refined and wasn't worried in the slightest. All right, you should have a shop of your own next. Only then can you expand your business? Carmelita bunched her brows and said. Carmelita bunched her brows and thought for a while before she said, but you only have less than 300 black crystal coins. It is far from enough to buy a shop in the City of Shadows. It would be very troublesome to rent one. How about this? I will buy a shop for you. You can return it to me when you have the money. Han Shuo did not have a fixed residence in the City of Shadows and had been renting gymnasiums to train himself. He understood that every inch of land in the City of Shadows was worth 1,000 black crystal coins. The remaining black crystal coins in his possession were far from enough for Han Shuo to purchase a shop. However, Han Shuo didn't want to owe Carmelita too many favors. After thinking for a moment, Han Shuo took out a lightning divine crystal from his spatial ring and handed it to Carmelita, saying, "How many crystal coins is this divine crystal worth?" Carmelita was a knowledgeable person. She immediately cried out and looked at him in surprise. "Why do you have divine crystals in your hands? Last time in the mountain valley, I happened to pick up a piece from someone's body. How much is it worth?" Han Shuo randomly made up a story. Divine crystals are good stuff. This divine crystal is worth at least 5,000 black crystal coins. I didn't expect you to be so lucky. Carmelita took the divine crystal from Han Shuo's hand, shot a glance at Han Shuo, and said, "All right, I know what you mean. I will use this divine crystal to exchange for a shop for you. Don't worry, with me around, everything can be settled." When Carmelita wholeheartedly helped Han Shuo, she did things very quickly. Han Shuo followed behind Carmelita and saw that it took her at least 3 days to exchange a divine crystal for a shop not too far away from the Saint residence. The shop was over 40 meters tall and had a total of 3 floors. Although it was a small shop in the City of Shadows, it should be worth more than 5,000 black crystal coins. The reason why Carmelita was able to purchase the shop with just 1 divine crystal of lightning was because of her reputation as a wicked woman. Han Shuo was indeed saved a lot of trouble with Carmelita taking care of all the procedures. On the 5th day, Han Shuo had officially moved into the small shop. However, the shop's counter did not display any valuable merchandise. Han Shuo was not in a hurry. Although the shop was small, he was very satisfied with it. In any case, he now had his own home on Elysium. He no longer needed to stay at the various gymnasiums in the City of Shadows. The shop had 3 floors. Han Shuo temporarily left the bottom 2 floors empty while Han Shuo converted the top floor into a small gymnasium. Although it was only 200 square meters, it was more than enough for Han Shuo. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Han Shuo, who had just started, was extremely busy. He first purchased some boundary towers and placed them on the 3rd floor. Carmelita helped him construct 2 boundaries to prevent the 3rd floor from being unable to support Han Shuo's cultivation. With Carmelita, a high god, helping to construct the boundaries saved Han Shuo a lot of effort. It was only after the boundary on the third floor was constructed that the gymnasium could be put to use. After that, Han Shuo himself constructed the second floor. He placed many enormous cabinets filled with grids. The cabinets contained many medicinal ingredients that Han Shuo had collected after arriving on Elysium. Other than that, Han Shuo also purchased a set of bottles and jars used by pharmacists. He made it look like he was going to refine medicines using existing materials. The second floor only contained some boundaries to prevent others from observing. Han Shuo could complete the second floor by himself. He didn't need Carmelita's help. Han Shuo used the medicinal ingredients he had collected on Elysium. He didn't use any of the methods used by pharmacists. Instead, he used some rare materials to refine a special cauldron for refining medicines, the 9 tessellation cauldron. With specialized tools, the process of refining medicines became much faster. In just half a month, Han Shuo had refined 300 of the simplest pills, the pill of rejuvenation. Elysium was the material plane with the densest spiritual energy in the universe. Some of the medicinal ingredients in this world contained extraordinary spiritual energy. Han Shuo believed that the effects of the 300 pills of rejuvenation would be very obvious. After refining the 300 pills of rejuvenation, Han Shuo spent another 5 days using the remaining medicinal ingredients to refine a few other types of medicines. For example, the pill of rejuvenation, which was most suitable for children born on Elysium, and the pill of tranquility, which could help to stabilize one's inner demons and empty one's mind, allowing one to comprehend the true essence of one's strength while advancing to a higher realm. By the time Han Shuo had used up all the medicinal ingredients, he had 300 pills of rejuvenation and 200 other medicines of various functions. Han Shuo used dazzling multicolored medicine bottles to store them. It was then that Han Shuo meticulously decorated the first floor of the shop, displaying the medicine bottles with different functions one by one. Before Han Shuo started refining the medicines, he had told Carmelita that no one was to disturb him. Therefore, Carmelita didn't come to visit Han Shuo during this period of time. After Han Shuo placed the medicine bottles on the first floor of the shop and opened the tightly shut doors, Carmelita and Andre came to visit Han Shuo 2 days later. Compared to the previous cold and courteous manner, Andre was much more cordial this time. Before he even entered the shop, he raised his head and looked at the name above Han Shuo's shop. He laughed heartily and said, "Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Haha, although the name is a little strange, it will definitely become famous in the future." Han Shuo was arranging the medicines according to their functions on the first floor. When he heard Andre's laughter, he immediately understood that the effects of the pills of rejuvenation he gave him previously must have been acknowledged by Andre. As expected, before Han Shuo could stand up to welcome him, Andre and Carmelita walked in with a smile on their faces. Andre did not beat around the bush and said straightforwardly, "Young man, we have tried the medicines you refined. Not bad, really not bad. The price of 100 black crystal coins per bottle is very reasonable. Brian, we are here to purchase those medicines." "Oh, this is it, the pills of rejuvenation." Carmelita pointed to a purple medicine bottle on the counter and said to Han Shuo, "Put them away. We'll take all 300 bottles. Second uncle, give him 30,000 black crystal coins." Andre put on a faint smile and was about to take out some black crystal coins to pay the bill. Han Shuo looked at Carmelita with a bitter smile and said, "There are only 300 bottles in total. If you take all of them, what else can I sell? How about this? You take 200 bottles first." Andre stared blankly at Han Shuo's words. Shortly after, he laughed heartily and said, "That's good too. Your shop is here anyway. When you refine new ones, we'll come and take them." "That would be best." Han Shuo smilingly put away the 200 bottles of pills of rejuvenation and handed them over to Andre. At the same time, he received 20,000 black crystal coins. 20,000 black crystal coins. On Elysium, this was no small fortune. Generally speaking, a mid-god who joined a large family clan could at most earn around 3,000 black crystal coins for 10 years. Only a large family clan like the House of Saint could afford to pay a mid-god 5,000 black crystal coins for 10 years. The materials used to refine the pills of rejuvenation were harvested by Han Shuo from the surrounding mountain ranges. It only took him slightly more than 10 days to refine them. After selling them to Andre, Han Shuo earned 20,000 black crystal coins. 20,000 black crystal coins was enough for Han Shuo to purchase a decent gymnasium in the City of Shadows. After collecting the heavy 20,000 black crystal coins, Han Shuo suddenly felt that it was indeed very fast to accumulate wealth through the use of medicinal pellets. At this rate, it wouldn't take him many years to accumulate a fortune that only a small family clan could possess. The sudden wealth that fell into his hands caused Han Shuo's imagination to run wild. His heart started to soar. "Hey, brat." Carmelita lightly patted on Han Shuo's shoulder. When Han Shuo came back to his senses, Carmelita said in a carefree manner, "It's just 20,000 black crystal coins, and you are already this happy. You are going to do big business in the future. How can you be satisfied with just this?" Han Shuo put on a carefree smile and said, "Haha, I have only been on Elysium for a short time, and I understand the importance of crystal coins. My biggest fortune is only 300 black crystal coins. Now that I have 20,000 black crystal coins in my hands, it's only natural that I would feel a little absent-minded. There's nothing strange about that. Brian, these medicinal pellets of yours are really great. In the City of Shadows, members of large family clans will be sent to various places to temper themselves. It is inevitable that they will get injured, and they will get injured repeatedly. With a supply of these medicinal pellets, it is only a matter of time before you strike it rich. There is no need to make a fuss about it. Right in the future, our House of Saint will come here every day to order some medicinal pellets in case of emergency. You are going to be very busy." Saint laughed heartily. "As long as there are crystal coins to pay, I will be more than happy to." Han Shuo replied with a smile. After thinking for a moment, he took out 3 vermilion medicinal pellets from his space ring. As soon as the pellets appeared, a fragrant aroma filled the air. "It smells so good. What are these medicinal pellets? What do they do?" Carmelita cried out in surprise. "These are for you." Han Shuo handed the pellets to Carmelita and sternly said, "These are medicinal pellets that I have specially refined for detoxification. Due to a strange illness that you had when you were young, there has always been a small amount of toxin in your body. After you cultivated the Edict of Destruction, those toxins will naturally no longer have any effect on your divine body. However, those toxins will always remain in your body. That is why your skin has become so rough. The color isn't that great either. I believe that these medicinal pellets will be of some help to you. You can give it a try." What? Carmelita absent-mindedly held the fragrant and intoxicating medicinal pill as she mumbled, "It's been so many years. Is it still useful?" A large part of the reason for Carmelita's strange personality was her ugly appearance. From this aspect, it could be seen that she was not completely unconcerned about her appearance. Carmelita was also a woman, and as long as one was a woman, there was no woman who could truly remain indifferent in this aspect. "I also don't know if it will be of any use. In any case, just take it and give it a try. If it really works, I can refine more for you," Han Shuo said. The toxins in Carmelita's body had been in her body for far too long and had long become a part of her divine body. As a high god who cultivated in the Edict of Destruction, the divine energy in her divine body was astonishing. Even Han Shuo wasn't completely confident in his ability to refine it. If Carmelita's condition improves, this shop of yours will become the largest in the City of Shadows. I promise you this." Andre solemnly promised to Han Shuo. It wasn't that the House of Saint had not tried to solve the problem that had plagued Carmelita for so many years. However, they had hired many pharmacists to concoct medicines, but to no avail. Everyone said that the divine energy in Carmelita's divine body was just too powerful and that the medicines would have no effect at all. Unless she gave up on her terrifying strength, no one could do anything about it. Carmelita knew the importance of strength. How could she give up on her terrifying strength? Therefore, all along, she had been unable to resolve this problem. As time passed, she had completely given up on it. She had long resigned herself to her fate and no longer harbored any illusions. Boo, Brian. Will it really work? Carmelita's voice was trembling. She couldn't suppress the hope that was reignited in her heart. I can't guarantee 100%, but there will definitely be an effect. Han Shuo replied in a deep voice. It was impossible for the medicine to turn Carmelita from an ugly woman into a beautiful woman. However, if the toxins in her body could really be expelled, at the very least, Carmelita wouldn't be as frightening as she was now. Huh, why is there a new shop here? Celestial Pearl Pharmacy? What a strange name. Tengfei, are you interested in taking a look? A familiar voice sounded from outside. A moment later, Cage, Tengfei, and his sister Eve of the House of Lavers walked into the shop. Andre and Carmelita had their backs to them. When they saw Han Shuo standing in the middle, they coldly groaned and said, "Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road." Then, they walked over with large strides. Chapter 703. Han Shuo really did not expect such a coincidence. Not long after his Celestial Pearl Pharmacy opened for business, apart from Carmelita and Andre, the first customers to arrive would be those people. It was truly a case of enemies meeting on a narrow road. Cage, Tengfei, and Eve walked toward Han Shuo. They did not pay much attention to Andre and Carmelita, who had their backs facing them. They felt that the two were just regular customers of the pharmacy and naturally would not pay much attention to them. When Han Shuo saw the three, he chuckled mischievously and said, "The three of you. Our pharmacy is not selling any products for the time being. Please leave. Since the store has opened, there is no reason for us not to do business." Tengfei said with a warm smile. He did not leave as Han Shuo had instructed, but walked straight into the store. "Brat, don't think that just because you are friends with Big Sister Donna, you are really something. Let me tell you, as long as you don't join our House of Lavers, not even Big Sister Donna can protect you." Cage was naturally arrogant and did not take Han Shuo's warning to heart. Andre, who was facing Han Shuo, revealed a rather displeased expression. However, he did not turn his head around. Carmelita, on the other hand, wore a face filled with annoyance. She coldly groaned with her back facing the three and said, "What an uncultured thing. Why are you still here when the store has already said that it is no longer selling? Who are you? How dare you meddle in the affairs of our House of Lavers?" That elegant young lady, Eve, did not forget to bring up the reputation of her family from time to time. But what she did not expect was that the one with her back facing her was the vile daughter of the saint family of the City of Shadows. In the City of Shadows, Carmelita was a god of plague that no one dared to provoke. Compared to her, Eve was on a completely different level. "Little slut, what did you say? Do you think that the House of Lavers is a big deal? Since when did the City of Shadows belong to your House of Lavers?" Carmelita turned around and swept her cold triangular eyes across Eve's body. A terrifying power faintly seeped out from her body, giving people a strong sense of shock. Carmelita's hideous, malevolent face was one of a kind in the City of Shadows. When she turned her head to glare at Eve, a terrifying aura suddenly emanated from her body. In addition to her terrifying appearance, Eve was so frightened that she immediately shrieked, "Ghost." There was nothing more damaging to Carmelita than this sentence. Carmelita, who had only wanted to intimidate Eve, suddenly heard such provocative words come out of Eve's mouth. The pain in her heart felt as though it was being twisted by a sharp knife. Carmelita's silhouette flickered. Eve, who had shrieked "Ghost," had her fair and tender neck grabbed by Carmelita. She was lifted into the air by Carmelita. With her triangular eyes looking at Eve, Carmelita coldly said, "What did you just say? I dare you to say it again." Eve's legs were kicking and her face was filled with unconcealable fear. With her neck tightly gripped by Carmelita, she couldn't speak even if she wanted to. It was only at this moment that the terrified Eve realized who the woman in front of her was. When she recalled Carmelita, the fear in her heart intensified. Eve's brother, Cage, was sweating profusely. When he saw that his sister could be killed by Carmelita at any moment, he hastily knelt on one knee and begged, Miss Carmelita, my little sister is insensible. Please be magnanimous and spare her this once. Our House of Lavers has been loyal and devoted for so many years, helping the House of Saint in handling all sorts of government affairs in the City of Shadows. Please, for the sake of our House of Lavers, forgive us. Tong Fei, who came with the two, had long figured out who that malevolent woman in front of him was. He too felt rather restless. However, as he wasn't a citizen of the City of Shadows, his words carried no weight. He merely looked at Carmelita with a face full of astonishment and did not dare to speak again. Ahem. Andre turned around and let out a light cough. He first bunched his brows and looked at the sweating Cage. Shortly after, he advised the furious Carmelita, the House of Lavers has indeed done a good job all these years. Although this young lady was in the wrong for offending you, just teach her a lesson but don't kill her. I know that I'm ugly, but for so many years, no one has ever dared to provoke me with such words. Little did I expect that I would meet someone who isn't afraid of death today. Hee hee. Very well, very well. You say that I look like a ghost? Very well then. I will make you look even more like a ghost. Carmelita laughed maliciously. A small knife had appeared in her hand out of nowhere. She was about to disfigure Eve's face. It was only at this moment that Han Shuo finally realized how domineering Carmelita could be. When he first heard about Carmelita's deeds, he was a little skeptical because when he was with Carmelita, he had only seen her good side. But now that he saw Carmelita dare to disfigure Eve of the Lavers family without hesitation, he finally understood why everyone in the City of Shadows was so afraid of this vile woman. Han Shuo sighed in his mind. He knew that he had no choice but to step in. No matter what this Eve was like, he couldn't just sit by and do nothing for the sake of Donna. Otherwise, an irreparable crack might form in his relationship with Donna. With a light sway, Han Shuo appeared beside Carmelita. Before Carmelita could tear Eve's soft skin with her small knife, Han Shuo's large hand unceremoniously slapped Eve's cheeks. Slap, 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 slap. A series of rhythmic slaps sounded. Eve's face was swollen like a pig's. Her cheeks were so swollen that anyone who saw them would want to laugh out loud. Look at her. Doesn't she look like a pig? Han Shuo smilingly said to Carmelita, who was holding the small knife in her hand. Carmelita's anger subsided considerably when she saw that the elegant beauty had been turned into a pig by Han Shuo's slaps. She couldn't help but chuckle mischievously and said, "She really does look like a pig. She's definitely a real pig. Brian, you sure have some tricks up your sleeve. Both cheeks are equally swollen." Hee hee. Eve, who was terrified, was dizzy from Han Shuo's series of slaps. She was in a daze and had no idea what was going on. Her eyes were filled with confusion. All right. Don't be angry with this kind of person. I'll just chase them away. Han Shuo smiled as he spoke to Carmelita. He casually grabbed Eve from Carmelita's hand. Carmelita was in a better mood after seeing Han Shuo's actions. She no longer thought about disfiguring Eve with her knife. When she saw Han Shuo grabbing Eve, she let go without a second thought. Han Shuo inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. He grabbed the dizzy Eve from Carmelita's hand and shoved Eve toward the dumbfounded Cage. He winked at Cage and angrily said, "The shop has not officially opened. Everyone, please forgive me for not seeing you off." Cage was startled by Han Shuo's loud shout. He hastily reached out to support the stumbling Eve. He looked at Han Shuo with a strange expression and pulled Eve out of the shop without looking back. Tong Fei stared blankly for a moment. He gave Han Shuo a friendly smile and followed Cage out of the shop. Not long after the three left the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, Eve seemed to have finally woken up from her daze. Immediately, she started wailing shrilly. She seemed to have discovered that her head had been disfigured. She cried miserably and mumbled something incomprehensible. Han Shuo listened attentively for a moment and heard that she was going to kill him. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. What a brainless woman. She doesn't even know that I saved her. It was only after the three had left that Andre turned to look at Han Shuo approvingly. A character like him who could summon the wind and summon the rain in the City of Shadows Of course, he could see the real meaning behind Han Shua's whipping of Eve. The House of Lavers was also a large family clan in the City of Shadows. If Carmelita disfigured Eve just because of that, it would indeed appear that the House of Saint was bullying the weak. Han Shua's sudden intervention could be considered to have indirectly helped Andre. Andre's impression of Han Shua grew even more favorable. He thought to himself that although this youngster's strength was lacking, his way of handling things was remarkable. Serves her right. If you didn't treat her like a pig head, I would have turned her into a real demon. Carmelita was still fuming even after Eve had left. All right, the two of you have finished what you need to do today. Hee, you should also go back and test the effects of the medicine, so I won't keep you any longer. Han Shua spoke very casually to Carmelita with a smile. Carmelita was concerned about the effects of Han Shua's medicine. She immediately nodded and said, I will try it immediately when I get back. Upon finishing those words, Carmelita excitedly thanked Han Shua and returned to the Saint residence. She did not even bother about her second uncle Andre. Andre understood his niece's temperament very well and did not fuss over such trivial matters. After Carmelita excitedly walked out of Han Shua's Celestial Pearl Pharmacy, Andre turned to look at Han Shua smilingly, nodded, and said, Young man, I really have to thank you for just now. If it wasn't for your quick-wittedness, that young lady would have been disfigured by Carmelita. If that were to happen, although our House of Saint is not afraid, it would still be somewhat troublesome. We would definitely be accused of bullying the House of Lavers. When I first arrived on Elysium, Miss Donna of the House of Lavers had been very kind to me. Although those people might be prejudiced against me, for the sake of Donna, I couldn't just stand by and watch them die. You don't have to thank me or anything. I just did it to make myself feel guilty. Han Shua sincerely told the truth. He did it for himself and had absolutely no intention of thinking about Andre or the House of Saint. However, after hearing Han Shua's words, Andre was even more impressed by Han Shua. He repeatedly said, Very good. It is a virtue to be grateful. It is very rare for you to remember this. Carmelita did not misjudge you this time. Right? Don't worry. I will inform the patriarch of the House of Lavers. That young man Cage is no fool. He should know that you are doing this out of kindness and will not cause you any trouble. I hope so. Before Eve left, she was crying and yelling that she wanted to kill Han Shua. Although Han Shua had saved her once, if she did not distinguish right from wrong and only remembered that Han Shua had beaten her into a pig's head, it would be hard to say if she would encounter any trouble in the future. All right, no matter what, I owe you a favor today. All right, I'll be taking my leave. Do what you need to do, Andre said smilingly, waved his hand, and left the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. After Andre and Carmelita left, more and more people came to stroll around. However, as the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy wasn't very famous and the medicinal pellets produced by Han Shua seemed to be exaggerated in their eyes, in addition to the fact that the prices of the medicines were very expensive, no one was willing to spend so many black crystal coins to purchase even the cheapest pellet of rejuvenation. Han Shua wasn't in a hurry. He believed that with Carmelita's help and Andre's help, the medicinal pellets he meticulously refined would one day become popular. And he was certain that that day wouldn't be too far away. In order to thank Carmelita for her help, Han Shua refined a few medicinal pellets that could expel the toxins from her body. If those medicinal pellets could improve Carmelita's condition and bring some changes to her ugly skin, given how active she was in the City of Shadows, the name of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy would be known sooner or later. The gods that came and went would be scared away by the outrageous prices after taking a stroll around Han Shua's shop. Some of them who could afford to buy the medicine were unwilling to spend the money as they did not know the efficacy of the medicine. Therefore, for 5 days in a row, although there were many people who came to look at the medicine, not a single one of them spent the money to buy it. Han Shua calmly rested in the great hall on the first floor, secretly observing the movements of those around him. Occasionally, he would explain things to others, passing his days in a carefree and unfettered manner. On this day, a beautiful woman arrived at the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. She had shoulder-length brown hair, black eyebrows, bright eyes, a straight nose, plump, bright red lips, and a pair of long, slender legs. She exuded an elegant and refined temperament. She wore sky blue, tight-fitting combat clothes that accentuated her alluring figure. It had been some time since Han Shuo arrived in the City of Shadows, and he had seen many women. However, he had never seen a woman as beautiful as this woman. In his impression, only Donna could compare to her. Han Shuo was rather surprised to see such a beautiful woman arrive at the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. However, he did not show any particular enthusiasm. He continued to sit there leisurely, sizing up the beautiful woman who walked in. After the beauty walked in, a group of young escorts walked in one after another. Like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon, they dispersed around the beauty. These people were also wearing battle suits, as if they had just come out from a training field. Miss Jia, why have you come to such a store? I think this is just a braggart. How dare he sell his medicines at such a high price? I really don't know where he gets his confidence from, said a golden-haired young man. He had a handsome appearance and a tall and straight figure. He stood out from the crowd of escorts and sneered after taking a look at the markings on the medicine bottles. The beautiful woman named Jia did not pay attention to the words of the golden-haired young man. Her beautiful eyes turned and landed on Han Shuo, who was sitting leisurely beside her. She put on a graceful smile and asked with interest, "Excuse me, are you the owner of this Celestial Pearl Pharmacy?" Han Shuo nodded, but did not stand up to greet her. He casually replied, "That's right. The prices of those medicines are clearly marked and their functions are clearly stated. I won't waste my breath explaining. Please help yourselves. If you're interested, you can purchase them with crystal coins. If you don't believe me, just leave quietly. Thank you for your cooperation." Han Shuo had tried to be enthusiastic a few days ago, but none of the people he met were willing to fork out any money in the end. Now that things had come to this, he couldn't be bothered to say anything more. He decided to wait until Carmelita's promotion was effective. However, Han Shuo's indifferent and arrogant attitude seemed rather strange in the eyes of these people. Every owner of a store would want to sell their goods as quickly as possible. They would enthusiastically explain to their customers when they saw them. Han Shuo, on the other hand, had adopted an indifferent attitude. It was as though he didn't care about them at all. You run a store, right?" cried the beautiful woman named Jia. She obviously did not expect a store owner like Han Shuo to be so rude to her. She immediately let out a soft cry and sized up Han Shuo in a strange manner. "He's only in Low God realm, his strength is meager, there's no mark of a large family clan on him, and I've never seen him before. He must be an outsider. Is he doing business or not?" thought Jia as she looked at Han Shuo. "Hey kid, are you doing business or not? The City of Shadows is so vast, but it's rare to see a store owner as arrogant as you. Are you new to the City of Shadows? You don't even know Miss Jia. Haven't you heard of the Kinson family?" The golden-haired protector shouted in displeasure when he saw Han Shuo's arrogant attitude. The Kinson family, one of the 5 major family clans. No wonder, it's her. After hearing the golden-haired youngster's words, Han Shuo's heart jolted. He immediately recalled Jia's identity. She was the daughter of the patriarch of the Kinson family. She cultivated in fighting aura other than the 12 fundamental energies and possessed late-stage mid-god strength. She was a very famous youngster in the City of Shadows. The reason why Jia was famous was not only because of her beauty, but also because she did not cultivate in the energies of death, destruction, and darkness as required by her family clan. Instead, she cultivated in fighting aura, relatively unorthodox energy found on Elysium. However, her cultivation of fighting aura was fruitful and she outperformed many of her peers. She had cultivated her fighting aura to late-stage mid-god realm, slightly stronger than Donna, who was a mid-stage mid-god. Furthermore, she was younger than Donna. This was very surprising. In the City of Shadows, Jia was a genius second only to Carmelita. Furthermore, she was slightly younger than Carmelita. No one could tell what kind of future she had. Of course, I have heard of the Kinson family, but this is the rule of my store. The prices and effects are clearly written on it. I don't think I need to explain anything. Well, if you want to buy, then buy. If not, then leave. Don't disturb my business. Han Shuo said unhurriedly. You, how dare you speak to me in such a manner? Do you believe that I will tear down your store? The golden-haired youngster shouted furiously. He saw that Han Shuo seemed to be a newcomer to the city and did not give a damn about Han Shuo. Han Shuo narrowed his eyes and sized him up with a sinister expression. He said, "Why don't you try?" Chapter 704. You are courting death, brat. The blonde youth couldn't stand Han Shuo's provocation and was about to tear down the store. "I'm in," Jia shouted. "This store is next to the House of Saint. You aren't really looking for trouble, are you?" The blonde youth stared blankly for a moment after hearing Jia's shout. He sized up Han Shuo suspiciously and said, "This store is next to the House of Saint, but it doesn't necessarily belong to the House of Saint. This brat is obviously a newcomer. Why should I be afraid of him?" Jia didn't think so. When she saw that Han Shuo didn't show the slightest trace of fear on his face, she felt that Han Shuo wasn't that simple. Seeing that Iman wasn't listening to her advice, Jia hastily distanced herself and said, "Do as you wish. But if anything happens, I won't interfere." "Don't worry, what could possibly happen? Haha, do you think I can't handle this brat?" Iman insolently reached for the first cabinet. It seemed that he had made up his mind. "Stop." Suddenly, an untimely shout came from outside. In a flash, the green-haired youth Anaito who had previously detained Han Shuo entered the celestial secret pharmacy with a team of divine guards under Erebus. After entering, Anaito first greeted Han Shuo in a friendly manner. Shortly after, he gazed at Iman with cold eyes and asked, "Young Master Iman, what are you doing here?" Anaito, who had almost destroyed the cabinet, did not expect that divine guards from the Third Corps would suddenly appear at such a critical moment. After staring blankly for a moment, he forced a smile and replied, "Nothing much, just looking around. The City of Shadows has its own rules. Even large family clans are not allowed to take advantage of their power to bully others. I hope that all of you know your limits and don't make things difficult for us." Anaito looked at Iman in displeasure and reprimanded righteously, "Why would I?" Iman put on a fawning smile and repeatedly said that he was only here to look at the goods. "I hope so." Anaito nodded. Shortly after, he turned to Han Shuo and said smilingly, "We are not far away. If anything happens to the store, just give us a shout." After finishing those words, Anaito coldly swept a glance at Iman, bowed slightly to Jia, and left the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy with that group of divine guards. Anaito was a squad leader of the Third Corps of Divine Guards under Erebus. He could also be considered as a member of the House of Saint. He was aware of the friendly relationship between Han Shuo and Carmelita. Fearing that Han Shuo would hold a grudge for what had happened in the past, Anaito had made a special trip to apologize. Even though Han Shuo had said that it was fine, Anaito was still rather uneasy. Recently, he had taken the liberty of leading a team of divine guards to watch over this place. Han Shuo knew that Annette was nearby and understood that Annette was trying to curry favor with him. That was why he was not afraid of Iman's threat at all. As expected, Annette had indeed coincidentally arrived at the critical moment. "Consider yourself lucky, kid, but you won't be so lucky forever." After Annette left, Iman said hatefully, "If you don't want to sell anything, then leave. Don't hinder me." Han Shuo wouldn't be courteous to Anaito. He once again chased Anaito out. Anaito knew that he wouldn't be able to do anything to Han Shuo today. After glaring fiercely at Han Shuo a few times, he was the first to retreat into the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Those friends of his also followed him out. However, Jia did not leave immediately. Instead, she looked at Han Shuo with great interest. She was much more observant than Iman. From Anaito's performance and Han Shuo's calmness and composure, Jia had a feeling that Han Shuo was not as simple as he seemed. Initially, she was just casually strolling around, but at this moment, due to the doubts in her heart, she had an idea. After casually strolling around the first floor for a while, Jia pointed at a bottle of pills of tranquility that cost 500 black crystal coins. She smilingly said to Han Shuo, "Give me a bottle of this medicine." "Miss Jia, why Why would you believe this guy? That's 500 black crystal coins we're talking about. Why doesn't he just go rob a bank? Those few youngsters who had yet to leave the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy immediately started persuading Jia when they saw her action. Han Shuo looked at Jia in a slightly astonished manner. He finally stood up from his chair and walked to Jia. Han Shuo opened the boundary on the cabinet, took out a bottle of pills of tranquility, and calmly handed it to Jia. He said, "The instructions on the bottle are to be used when you are comprehending the essence of energy. You will get the greatest effect. Here are 500 black crystal coins. Please keep them well," said Jia smilingly as she took the bottle of medicine from Han Shuo. She then put the 500 black crystal coins on the cabinet. She then gazed at Han Shuo with her bright eyes and smilingly said, "I will remember. Thank you." After saying those words, Jia put on a sweet smile again. Her slender fingers twirled the exquisite medicine bottle as she walked away. When she was about to leave, she turned around to look at Han Shuo and said, "If it doesn't work, I will come back for you. Even if you are a member of the House of Saint, if you dare to deceive me, I will not let you get away with it." Han Shuo shrugged and put on an indifferent face. He thought to himself that the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy had gained yet another propagandist. For the next few days, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy still had no business. Han Shuo decided to close the shop and stay on the third floor to cultivate the essence of energy. He thought to himself that Carmelita would definitely help him after she had benefited from the medicine. By then, he wouldn't have to worry about not having enough customers. Nearly half a year had passed since he left the Miasma Cloud Mountain Range. That avatar of Han Shuo's that had been cultivating the essence of the energy of destruction in the cauldron of Myriad Demon had finally advanced to late-stage Low-God realm. Those divine essences of destruction that he obtained from the cauldron of Myriad Demon were finally put to good use. Han Shuo once again began to absorb them. While Han Shuo was cultivating in seclusion, the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy closed its doors. But little did he know that a storm was brewing in the City of Shadows regarding the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. The Lavers family, Donna, who had spent a long time preparing for her trip to the Spacetime Fortress, finally returned from one of the fortresses under the Lavers family. As soon as she returned to the Lavers' residence, she saw her younger sister Eve crying and complaining to her. The bruises on her face had yet to completely subside. "Sister Donna, I was beaten by someone." Eve cried as soon as she saw Donna return. Grief welled up in Eve's heart. Although Donna was usually very strict with her younger siblings, they knew that Donna loved them dearly. Unable to find anyone to confide in, Eve turned to Donna as a breakthrough point. "What happened? Who beat you? Why didn't your father stand up for you?" Donna hastily asked when she saw Eve's appearance. "Father forbade me from taking revenge. My brothers didn't stand up for me either. I was beaten for nothing." Eve cried. "Who did it? There aren't many people in the City of Shadows who would dare to beat you up like that. Could it be those from the House of Saint?" Donna furrowed her brows and said angrily, "Even the House of Saint can't be so arrogant. I have some friendship with Carmelita. Tell me who it is, and I will have Carmelita teach him a lesson." It's that friend you brought with you last time. I think his name is Brian," Eve said in a sobbing voice with an aggrieved face. What? Donna was astonished. She softly cried out, "How is that possible? Even if Brian did it out of respect for me, he shouldn't have hurt you to this extent. Are you sure you aren't mistaken?" After hearing Eve's words, Donna faintly felt that something was amiss. She knew Han Shuo very well. She didn't think that Han Shuo would do such a thing. "It's true. It's really him." Eve shrieked, "My brother was there too. He can testify. And Tung Fei." "I'll go ask your brother." Donna was filled with doubts. Soon, she found Cage, who was sparring with Ting Fei in the gymnasium. Cage had a grudge against Han Shuo. Although he felt that Han Shuo might have good intentions, he simply didn't like Han Shuo and wanted to ruin the relationship between Han Shuo and Donna. When Donna asked him about it, Cage distorted the truth and told the whole story to Donna. Originally, it was Han Shuo who saved Eve. But when Cage heard about it, He made it sound like Han Shuo was bullying Eve by taking advantage of his friendship with Carmelita. Cage didn't dare to accuse Carmelita of any wrongdoing, so he pushed all the blame onto Han Shuo. When those words came out of Cage's mouth, Han Shuo became an unforgivable, despicable, and unforgivable villain. Tung Fei, isn't that what happened? Donna knew her sister-in-law's temperament and still couldn't believe it. She asked Tung Fei, who was looking at her from the side. She thought that Tung Fei had nothing to do with this matter and would report the truth fairly. Unfortunately, Tung Fei subconsciously thought of Han Shuo as a rival for Donna. Plus, he had a good relationship with Cage, so naturally he would help Cage. Under Donna's questioning, Tung Fei didn't say much and only nodded affirmatively. Seeing that Tung Fei also confirmed it, Donna more or less believed it. Anger appeared on her face as she murmured softly, "I didn't expect him to be such a person. Because of a small matter in the gymnasium, he actually did such a thing to Eve. No matter what, Eve is still my sister. How could he not give me face?" Donna muttered to herself as she slowly walked out of the gymnasium. Seeing the anger on Donna's face, Cage and Tung Fei exchanged meaningful glances. Immediately, the two were in a good mood and their battle strength seemed to have increased significantly. On the other side, in the Kinson family, in a secret chamber in her boudoir, Jia, who was carefully comprehending the power of fighting aura, suddenly woke up from her meditation. She waved the silver longsword in her hand, and the entire room was filled with a dazzling radiance, as if thousands of stars were shining at the same time. It was so dazzling that one couldn't open their eyes. When the radiance faded, Jia stood up with a smile on her face and carefully put away the longsword. Her bright eyes suddenly focused on a medicine bottle on the floor of the secret chamber. With a wave of her hand, the medicine bottle marked with the pill of tranquility fell into Jia's palm. Her bright eyes were filled with surprise as she murmured, "Pill of tranquility. What a miraculous medicine. It actually helped me increase my fighting aura condensation rate by another level. 500 black crystal coins is so worth it." Soon enough, Jia walked out of the secret chamber and hastily arrived at a secluded courtyard. As soon as she entered, she shouted, "Mother, give me 100,000 black crystal coins. I need them urgently." Bess, the beautiful woman who was as beautiful as Jia but with a slightly more mature charm, looked at Jia in astonishment. She knitted her brows and reprimanded, "What have we been teaching you? Our House of Kinson is a prestigious family clan in the City of Shadows. You have to remember some basic etiquette." "Yes, mother. Quickly give me 100,000 black crystal coins. I really need them urgently." Jia pulled Bess's arm in a coquettish manner and yelled, 100,000 black crystal coins is not a small amount. It has to be recorded in the family accounts. You silly girl. I have given you so little pocket money. What exactly do you want? Tell me clearly, Bess said impatiently as she straightened Jia's hair. It's like this. A new shop has just opened in the city. It's called the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Jia knew that her mother would not let her go if she did not explain clearly. After a long while, Bess cried out in surprise and said, "Is it really as miraculous as you said?" "Of course, mother. Don't you trust your daughter? I have used it myself. I know very well how much that medicine has helped me. Really, 500 black crystal coins is just too cheap. We have to buy it while the other family clans still don't trust that pharmacy. This is no longer just about the value of crystal coins." Jia said hastily, "Come, I will go with you. I have nothing to do now anyway." After hearing Jia's words, Bess understood that if Jia was telling the truth, those medicines could be an opportunity to improve the overall strength of the family clan. She immediately took out some crystal coins and left the House of Kinson with Jia. Saint Residence. On this day, Carmelita walked out of her gymnasium. Miss, your face, your face." The plump woman, Karina, suddenly cried out in surprise when she saw Carmelita. She pointed at Carmelita with an expression of disbelief. Carmelita's originally oddly colored and bumpy skin had become a lot fairer and smoother. This transformation made her look less ferocious and ferocious. Although she was still very ugly, her appearance was more acceptable than before. I know. Carmelita repeated those words incoherently. After taking a few steps, she took out a small mirror and looked at herself. Then, she raised her head and laughed delightfully. Miss Carmelita, you have changed a lot. The divine guards and maids exclaimed softly. Hey, you little girl, why do you seem to be different? Oh, you seem to have turned fairer. How did you become fairer? How is this possible? A few aunties exclaimed softly. Waha, wahaha, I am not dreaming, I am not dreaming. Carmelita shrieked continuously as she ran out of the saint residence. Andre, who was handling family matters at the top of a building, was attracted by Carmelita's shouts. When he lowered his head to take a look, Andre's body trembled. His face was filled with shock as he said, It actually worked. Andre immediately put down the administrative matters in his hands and flew towards Carmelita. One day, Han Shuo, who was cultivating in seclusion on the third floor of the gymnasium, suddenly heard a commotion outside. He unfolded his consciousness and discovered that nearly 100 people had gathered outside the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. Those people were yelling, "Open the door! Open the door! We want to buy the divine medicine." Chapter 705. Han Shuo was startled by the sudden arrival of the crowd and the clamor. But soon after, he realized the source of the noise. With a face full of joy, he happily walked down from the gymnasium and opened the doors of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy that had been tightly shut for a long time. Standing in front of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy were many people that Han Shuo recognized. For example, Carmelita, whose skin had turned slightly fairer, Andre, who was all smiles, Gia, who came to purchase a bottle of pill of tranquility, Donna, and several youngsters from the Lavers family. However, most of them were people Han Shuo didn't recognize. They were people of all ages and were dressed in gorgeous clothes. They were chatting with Carmelita, Andre, and the others in soft voices. A few gods, who were obviously not of high status, surrounded those people and shouted, "Open the door! Open the door! Damn it! Why are there so many people all of a sudden?" Gia, who was among the crowd, complained in a low voice. "We didn't want the news to spread, but that last Carmelita is too eye-catching. Her appearance is unique in the entire City of Shadows. The sudden change in her skin is simply the most eye-catching advertisement for the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. On top of that, she has been telling everyone she meets. Who wouldn't know that the change in her skin originated from the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy?" Beth, the noblewoman beside Gia, also felt somewhat regretful. She knew that it would be difficult to realize her dream of monopolizing the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. "Everyone, what do you want?" Han Shuo asked after opening the doors and sweeping his eyes across the crowd blocking the entrance. "Brat, look at me. What's so different about me?" Carmelita said excitedly. She leaped and stepped on a few heads as she arrived before Han Shuo. Those who were stepped on by Carmelita groaned and were about to denounce her for her actions. But when they saw Carmelita's face, they tactfully shut their mouths. "What's there to look at? I knew those medicines would work," Han Shuo said smilingly. "Brian, make a few more bottles for me. Hurry up." Carmelita giggled mischievously. She was not at all courteous to Han Shuo and immediately requested, Here are 5 small bottles. You can continue to take them. I've already prepared them for you." Han Shuo carefully took out 5 small bottles and handed them to Carmelita in front of everyone. He was very satisfied with the publicity Carmelita had done for him. Carmelita didn't stand on ceremony with Han Shuo. She kept the 5 small bottles like they were precious treasures and patted Han Shuo's shoulder in a carefree manner. "Thank you, Brian. You're too incredible." "Brian, how much are those potions worth? Name a price, and I'll calculate it for you later." In the crowd, Andre suddenly shouted. His voice was not loud, but it was loud enough to suppress the noise. Everyone could hear it. Andre was standing alone not far away. The people from the City of Shadows around him kept their distance from him. After Andre spoke those words, the clamorous crowd suddenly quietened down. In the City of Shadows, Andre was in charge of the finances of the House of Saint and indirectly controlled the economy of the City of Shadows. Any business of a major family clan had to go through Andre's approval. In addition to his extraordinary strength, Andre enjoyed an extremely high status in the City of Shadows. Given his status, the crowd naturally fell silent as soon as he spoke. They were afraid that they might drown out Andre's voice and incur his displeasure. To those merchants who needed to make a living in the City of Shadows, Andre was even more important than City Lord Wallace. That's a different matter. Carmelita and I are good friends. I personally refined these potions for her. Consider it a gift. You don't have to settle the score with me. Han Shua put on a carefree smile and straightforwardly refused. Andre stared blankly for a moment, but did not force Han Shua to accept the potions. He nodded with a faint smile and said, "All right then, I'll sell all the potions in your shop that can be sold to me at the price you set. That won't be a problem, right?" "How can we do that? We have waited for so long. How can we sell them all to you? Even the House of Saints shouldn't be so overbearing. This is a legal transaction. You can't sell them separately or first come first serve. We have waited for so long. How can we return empty-handed?" Almost everyone was protesting Andre's decision. It seemed that they were no longer afraid of Andre's status in the City of Shadows. It seemed that the temptation of Han Shua's potions was indeed enormous. They had grown bolder all of a sudden. Andre, on the other hand, did not expect that his suggestion would be opposed by the entire crowd. He stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "Brian, just you wait." Han Shua nodded and forcefully suppressed the ecstasy in his heart. He said, "Since everyone has given me so much face and waited until now, I can't let you all return empty-handed. How about this? Regardless of your status, each person is limited to 3 bottles. This way, I can guarantee that not everyone will be able to enjoy the potions from my shop." Good. Those who knew that their status wasn't high enough started to make a big fuss. Beth of the House of Kinson, who was about to speak, sighed helplessly. She turned to Gia, who was beside her, and said, "Well, it seems that we can't distribute the potions according to our family clans. How unlucky. We were the first to arrive, but that bastard refused to open the door. Otherwise, all the potions would belong to our House of Kinson. How could things end up like this?" Gia cried out angrily. But soon after, she said regretfully, "If I had known this would happen, I would have brought a team of my family's divine guards. If we distribute the potions according to the number of people, we would have a bigger advantage." All right, stop complaining," Beth consoled. Then, she softly said, "But this talent is the most important. As long as he is here, there will be an endless supply of potions. We should be paying more attention to his situation." "That's right." Gia nodded when she heard those words. She paid even more attention to observing Han Shua. She suddenly felt that Han Shua was much more pleasing to the eye. Originally, she had a bad impression of Han Shua as she felt that Han Shua was arrogant and conceited. But after learning about the miraculous effects of Han Shua's potions, she immediately convinced herself that such a miraculous person should have an eccentric temperament. What a character! Come. Everyone, line up and come one by one. Each person is limited to 3 bottles. Please carefully look at the function and price on the bottle, and choose the medicine most suitable for you." Han Shua's gentle voice sounded at the entrance of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy. The crowd at the entrance of the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy immediately started pushing and shoving each other to get to the front. They hoped that they could be the first to enter the pharmacy so that they could choose the medicine most suitable for them. They did not want to be left behind and have their medicine snatched away by others. Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, those with insufficient strength were thrown out of the arena. The powerful leaders of several major family clans stood in front of Han Shua without the slightest trace of politeness. All of them looked at Han Shua in a refined and courteous manner, asking Han Shua to begin. Han Shua stared blankly for a moment. He wanted to berate them, but when he saw the friendly smiles on the faces of the experts from the large family clans, Han Shua was too embarrassed to say anything. He stepped aside and allowed those people to enter first. He then casually called out, "Miss Carmelita, please keep an eye on the outside for me. Don't let them cause any trouble." "Don't worry, I'll take good care of them for you," Carmelita replied straightforwardly after carefully putting away the 5 medicine bottles. "He's just a pharmacist. What's so great about him? Look at that smug face of his." Cage suddenly groaned coldly from behind the crowd. Donna, on the other hand, was astounded. Her thoughts were in a mess. She turned to look at Cage and Eve beside her. She was originally prepared to denounce Han Shuo, but now, she suddenly didn't know what to do. Although those few people who entered the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy first were not patriarchs of large family clans, they were still reputable characters in the City of Shadows. Just like Andre, they had high status and prestige in their family clans. Judging from their behavior, Donna believed that they would be willing to offend the House of Lavers in order to establish a good relationship with Han Shuo. Not to mention that the vile woman of the City of Shadows, Carmelita, was among the crowd. Even the illness that had plagued Carmelita for many years might be cured. In addition, from Donna's observations, if she were to denounce Han Shuo, would Carmelita help her or Han Shuo? Most importantly, from the discussions of those around her and Carmelita's deliberate propaganda, Carmelita believed that the medicines in Han Shuo's shop were equally important to the House of Lavers. If she were to become enemies with Han Shuo, the House of Lavers would very likely end up with nothing at all. When Donna thought of this, she felt so sad that she could die. She turned to look at her 2 younger siblings beside her. Donna secretly cursed them for being so immature and only knew how to cause trouble for the family clan. With such thoughts in mind, Eve's swollen face did not look pitiful at all. Instead, it looked even uglier. "Elder sister, are you going to uphold justice for us?" Eve hastily cried out when she saw that Donna's eyes were flickering. Feeling rather disgusted, Donna glared at Eve with a cold face and said, "Look at the current situation. Do you think it's appropriate for us to denounce him?" "Why not?" Eve had yet to see the situation clearly. All she knew was that she had to take revenge on Han Shuo. "Cage, do you think we should find trouble with Brian today?" Donna was too disappointed. She no longer looked at the anxious Eve beside her, but asked Cage, who was beside her. Cage wasn't as stupid as his younger sister. He put on an ugly expression when he heard those words. He helplessly sighed and said, "Let's forget about it for today. If we denounce him today, we might offend everyone who came here to buy his medicines. This doesn't seem to be appropriate. Then why are you all still here? Get out of here." Donna cursed softly. She turned around and was about to leave. However, she was smiling bitterly in her heart. "Brian. Oh, Brian, you really are something. It has only been half a year, and not only did you manage to befriend the House of Saint, the most feared family clan in the City of Shadows, you even made such miraculous medicines." Sigh. "Teng Fei, why aren't you leaving?" Suddenly, Cage looked at Teng Fei, who was standing motionless beside him, and asked in a puzzled manner, "You guys go back first. I will buy a few bottles of medicine later and see if they really have that effect." Teng Fei put on a faint smile and said gently. Although Teng Fei also disliked Han Shuo, as a descendant of a major family clan, he would never forget to work hard for the sake of his family clan. If those medicines in Han Shuo's shop really had that effect, Teng Fei would discard his personal feelings and do everything in his power to obtain those medicines. If you were as sensible as Teng Fei, such a talent wouldn't have slipped away from our House of Lavers. Think about it. If those medicines could only be used by our family clan, how great would it be for our House of Lavers? Donna sighed and left in disappointment. You actually believe in that fella's medicine?" Eve asked Teng Fei in a low voice. "So many people have gathered here for his medicines. There are many experts from major family clans in the City of Shadows here. I believe that their judgment is correct. Although I don't really like that fella, I have to stay for the benefit of my family clan." "I'm sorry." It wasn't like Teng Fei liked Eve. Just like how Donna looked down on Eve, Teng Fei also looked down on this brainless woman from the bottom of his heart. You actually said that. I'm so disappointed. Brother, let's go." Eve dragged Cage and left in a huff. This time, she hated Teng Fei as well. Brainless woman. If you had half of Donna's intelligence, that fella might have become the personal pharmacist of the House of Lavers. Idiot woman, do you really think I care about you? Tung Fei said in a low voice with a sneer after Eve left. Upon finishing those words, Tung Fei squeezed his way to the front in high spirits. He was wondering if he should try his best to build a good relationship with Han Shuo and draw a clear line between himself and Cage, and Eve as soon as possible so that he would not incur Han Shuo's annoyance. The clamor continued. However, under the control of the evil woman, there were no more queue cutting. Those who entered the Celestial Pearl Pharmacy came out feeling both happy and regretful. They were happy that they had obtained medicines and regretful that they had only obtained 3 bottles. Before they left, they repeatedly reminded Han Shuo that he must leave some for them if he refined any new medicines. Han Shuo politely laughed but did not promise anyone anything. He only watched excitedly as the medicine bottles in the cupboards dwindled and the crystal coins in his hand grew heavier and heavier. Miss Jia, I'm very happy that you did not cause trouble for me. Han Shuo greeted Jia with a beaming smile as he collected a bag full of black crystal coins when he saw Jia walking in with a beautiful woman. Jia's tender and beautiful face was full of smiles. She pleaded, no matter what, I am your first tester. Can you give me special treatment? No problem. You can choose any 3 bottles and I will give you a 20% discount. What do you think? Han Shuo nodded and said in a deadpan manner, Scoundrel. Jia cursed smilingly. She looked straight at Han Shuo with her bright eyes and said, You know that's not what I mean. I don't need you to give me a 20% discount. I would rather buy them at a higher price as long as you give us the rest of the medicines. What do you think? Han Shuo knew that these descendants of large family clans would not care about the amount of crystal coins. He was just teasing her on purpose. Now that he heard her say this, he immediately said righteously, How can I do that? How can I do business if I give you everything? In my eyes, everyone is equal. It's the same even if you are of noble status. Stop acting so righteous in front of us. If everyone is equal, why don't you accept crystal coins for Carmelita's medicines? Jia said bluntly. She was both annoyed and amused. That's different. Carmelita and I are friends. Those medicines are a gift from me. Han Shuo said with a mischievous smile. Then we are still friends. Sell everything to me. I am willing to pay a high price. Jia continued to pester Han Shuo. Hey, can the people inside hurry up? We are still waiting. A few people outside shouted impatiently while Jia was pestering Han Shuo. 5 bottles. Each of you can take 5 bottles. That's all. Han Shuo saw that Jia was pestering him endlessly and that the people outside were getting more and more anxious. He had no choice but to surrender and give Jia a discount. All right, let's call it a day. Next time you refine new medicines, remember to leave more for the Kinson family. Price is not a problem. Jia saw that Han Shuo had made up his mind and knew that she would be offended if she continued to pester him. Only then did she and her mother pick up the 10 medicine bottles and casually throw a bag of black crystal coins on the floor. She smiled faintly and held her mother's hand as they drifted away. Oh, 5,000 black crystal coins. That seems to be 2,000 too much. Han Shuo waited for a moment. He knew that Jia did not care about the extra black crystal coins. He smiled bluntly and put the bag away. After sending off another 10 or so people, the number of medicines on this floor gradually decreased. It seemed that there would not be any left to sell in the near future. Hi, Brian. We meet again. It was at this moment that Tung Fei walked in with a smile. He immediately greeted Han Shuo in a friendly manner. When Han Shuo saw that it was Tung Fei, the smile on his face disappeared. He calmly said, Ah, so it is young Master Tung Fei. Are you here to purchase medicine from my shop as well? Of course. Hee. I did not expect that you, Brian, would be such a miraculous apothecary. I really misjudged you last time. Tung Fei did not mind Han Shuo's attitude towards him at all. He laughed heartily and said, I am just a guest of the Lavers family. What happened last time was a grudge between you, Cage, and Eve. Please don't blame it on me. I am very appreciative of you. Pick 3 bottles of medicine. I don't have time for you. Han Shuo impatiently urged Tung Fei. Don't be so heartless. Hee hee, I was indeed in the wrong last time. I am now formally apologizing to you. Teng Fei had a good temper. He was not angered by Han Shua's bad attitude at all. He chattered non-stop beside Han Shua's ear. One had to admit that Teng Fei was a talented man. After listening for a while, Han Shua forced a smile and said, "You were not as eloquent as you were the last time. All right, take your things and leave. There are still many people waiting behind you. Do not hinder my business." That bastard inside. Are you done yet? I will throw you out if you speak any more nonsense. Carmelita did not have a good impression of Teng Fei the last time she saw him with Eve. She suddenly threatened him with a cold voice. I'm leaving. Teng Fei let out a hollow laugh. It was obvious that he was a little afraid of Carmelita. He randomly picked 3 bottles of medicine, left behind 800 black crystal coins, and hastily left with a smile. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.